Hello there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Super Cast Brothers Roster Redux Edition, as we are continuing our journey through Nintendo's history to remake the Super Smash Bros. Roster from, well, I guess before the very beginning, really, because we started the NES, and we've now made it to what is, for many people, their favorite game, Melee. I thought about, doing the whole announcer Super Smash Bros. Melee loud booming voice thing, but I was just like, and I don't want to be loud right now and just yell that. So screw it. But of course, we got not just me here. Jonno is here, as he always is, because it's
Super Smash Brothers Melee!
I'm glad somebody did it. I was going to prompt our guest from the episode to do it. But hey, I'll take it as long as one of us does it. But yes, we have a guest, another new guest. We have a different guest for each of these episodes because that's the fun of it. So, guest, who are you? Is this Colton? No, wait, no, that's
Jake.
not right. That's somebody. Oh, Jake! Wait, I thought we had you on already.
Nope.
Are you sure you're Jake?
Yes.
Well,
He's the
sound
other one.
Canadian.
Oh yeah, bud.
Yeah, I know Canadians. We, as we all know, all Canadians sound alike.
Oh, I don't know what that there, bud.
Why do you sound Minnesotan?
That is sound.
That's Minnesota.
That's what our Newfies sound like.
I guess Newfie is Minnesota then,
Yeah, I guess.
because that's definitely Minnesota.
It sounds like the Mises from Brother Bear as well.
Sure.
Ooh, what are you doing up on the roof there, bud?
Oh my god, that's so Minnesota.
Oh, really interesting.
Yeah, I mean Minnesota is the closest an American accent gets to a Canadian accent. So I mean,
We always get like blamed for that accent, but like it's really just like the Newfies out east that sound like that. Apparently, like we don't sound like that. We're like, hey, grab me a beer there, bud. Let's go out for a rip.
I need to check now if Newfoundland is next to Minnesota or not, because I don't know.
Minnesota, if you look into their state history, they're largely Canadian immigrants.
Oh, this makes so much sense now.
Yeah.
I completely derailed that, but
No, I mean, hey, listen, if people don't expect this podcast to get derailed, then this is their first episode. Which is weird. You start with this as your first episode. But, hi, welcome to the show. I'm Zantok, otherwise known as Lister. That's Jonno, otherwise known as John! No! And our guest today is Flamezone, otherwise known as Baby Eric.
There's some
thanks
history
for having me,
there.
guys. It's exciting to be on the new season and with a new format, no less. Very excited about this one. GameCube is one of my favorite eras of gaming. A lot of nostalgia associated with that, and the cast is getting bigger. So looking forward to what you guys come up with.
Hey, the GameCube had one of my
Same
favorite
to
games
you,
of all
my
time.
friend.
Yu-Gi-Oh! The False-Bound Kingdom. Love it.
Actually, was
That's one
good
of
for
those-
its time.
It's so good.
That's one of those games where I remember that I really liked it, but I don't remember anything else. I have to go back and play it.
I wanted to record a Let's Play of it, but it kept crashing on me on a certain mission. As soon as I entered combat on that mission, it crashed. I was like, fuck.
Mhm.
I'm sad.
Cool. Yeah.
But, as we said, this is a Roster Redux episode, our fourth, following NES, SNES, and N64. We have 26 characters currently in our new Smash Brothers roster. That's where we are at so far. I think I have the number right, and I am mentally panicking, wondering, oh no, is that wrong? The answer, of course, is no. I am correct, as always. Fuck everyone that says otherwise. Did I have to pull up my spreadsheet to make sure? Yes. But was I correct? Yes.
Always.
So, that's what matters. Not how we got there, but the fact that I was right.
Sounds you should be an American politician.
What makes you think I'm not?
Oh, there you go. Well, you'd be an improvement over some other.
I'd be an improvement over at least half.
Oh, more than that. Definitely more than that.
But I only need to say at least half.
True.
And the fun thing is, both halves, as far as they're aware, I could be talking about the one that they don't like. They don't know.
Yep.
We don't get political here. I'm on your side.
We only get political a little bit, like when we say that pineapple does not belong on pizza.
Whoa.
Do you disagree?
How dare you? I do disagree. I love pineapple.
Wow.
Hawaiian is my favorite pizza flavor. And that's not a joke.
Well, it's a good thing I already had a low opinion of you.
I also like pineapple on pizza.
That's a good thing I had a really low opinion of you. In all seriousness, I don't give a shit. I personally think it's weird, but I'm not going to throw a brick at somebody that eats it. I just won't eat it.
No.
Because what the fuck? That's weird.
Pineapples of all kind. I grow them on my island.
Sure.
Yep.
But it is time, Roster Redux. Before we get into revealing who our character picks are for this episode on the GameCube, Super Smash Bros. Melee, we're going to go over a couple things first. First of all, a reminder of who is currently on the roster, which this part of the show is going to get longer and longer with each episode we do, because I got to read all their names. But I'll just throw up our little... Oh, that's the wrong thing. I'll just throw up our little roster image that we have made up so far. All right, so the characters currently in Super Smash Bros. At the end of the N64 edition, we have Mario, Bowser, Luigi, Peach, Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong, Link, Ganon, Samus, Pit, Little Mac, Takamaru, Yoshi, Kirby, Meta Knight, Ness, Marth, Tiki, Fox, Pikachu, Mewtwo, Captain Falcon, Wario, Simon Belmont, Mega Man X,
Bomberman,
and Bomberman. What the fuck, sir? What the fuck, sir? I don't hate it, but what the fuck, sir?
Wakamaru!
Oh my god.
Tiki.
Okay, you now need to reveal all of your character picks tonight the same way. You're now in your contract. I retroactively made it so. Alright, so that we've done that, now remember who every character is that we've already chosen. Nobody has to go, hey guys, you forgot Yoshi. No, he didn't! He's already here!
It's from the best game, Yoshi's Story.
No. Don't you give into that bullshit. The only other thing really to mention, before we actually get to begin here, is a brief overview of what the rules were for this episode, because there's rules for each roster. Like, obviously, we cannot add Bayonetta, because Bayonetta does not exist yet. So, we have a cutoff date. Characters, with a couple exceptions that I'll get to, characters that must have had their original game have released on or before October 31st, 1999. Because that's when we are putting in saying, like, hey, this is when the roster was decided, so anything that happened after this, just too new. There are two exceptions, and because these exceptions come because of what this was in, actual Smash canon. Because Roy and Pichu were added into the real Super Smash Bros. Melee, even though their games didn't release until after Melee did, we are allowing characters from Pokemon Gold and Silver and Fire Emblem Binding Blade to be added into this roster. Whether or not we picked any of those characters, well, we'll find out. But those are the rules. The rule is 13 characters from each of us, which we will then boil down to a total list of 13. And then in the previous episode, we said there's going to be a cap of 5 third parties. Pretty much immediately after we recorded that, John and I talked. We're just like, yeah, that feels like a lot after we only currently have 3 in the whole roster period. So we just cut it down to 3. So maximum of 3 third parties will be added tonight. Could be less. Who knows? We could have added 2 in the last episode, and we only added 1. So we'll just see what happens. But, guys, are you ready?
Oh, yeah.
What about you?
Who?
You.
I'm ready.
Oh, good. Am I ready? I guess. All right. Well, I guess I'm
Yes.
ready. So I'm gonna kick things off as per always. It's gonna be me, Jonno, and then Flamezone, our current guest, revealing one character at a time. And I decided I wanted to start with a surprising choice.
Oh boy.
You know, the last two, I picked a character that I felt like this is the character that above all others in this era needed to be added at this point. And I'm going to pick somebody more surprising this time around. Somebody that I don't think you would expect me to choose. I am adding Sheik from The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. A surprising choice, I know. Quite controversial, I'm sure. I mean, why would you not add Zelda? Why are you adding in Sheik? That's really, really weird. But you know what? Sheik's a ninja. Ninjas are cool. And Ocarina of Time is, you know, the best game of all time still, according to some people. So yeah, I'm picking Sheik.
Okay, cool. We're actually to preface this, it's cool to see Sheik on your roster, and it's cool to be giving Ocarina of Time. It felt kind of weird, right? Like getting into Smash 64, and we're like, here's the biggest game on the N64. Dev deadline comes around, we can't include it in the. So here we are now. Will we all align on including an Ocarina of Time character? I will say maybe, because I will include Zelda as my first choice.
What?
On today's roster. Yeah, that one. That
she doesn't do anything. What are you talking about?
I would imagine her moveset at this point would be very similar to how it was in Melee itself, where she was granted powers from the sages to deliver magic unto her foes.
Wait, Zelda's in Melee?
Yeah.
Oh no.
So Shrek.
Oh no.
At least in my copy.
My go to unveil, I guess.
Yeah, go ahead and give us your first character.
So let's
unveil for us.
Let's do a little bit of, keep on theme. I'm gonna reveal Ganondorf.
Oh.
I know,
nice.
it's like
all three different characters from the same game. Yeah.
They've all appeared in Melee, and I guess I know, like, on your guys' roster, there's already a Ganon, and I was debating this one, but I think it'd be kind of cool to have him transform and interact with Ganon. Yeah, so because I feel like so many later iterations of Ganon are more focused on Ganondorf, I still like wanted to have him in there, and then he's like so iconic in Ocarina of Time, which is like probably the biggest game release of this time frame. So I think he deserves his spot.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think he can, or is undeserving. It'll be interesting to see where it goes with as we really solid choice, and something about it when include Ganondorf, I would say.
Jonno, you are cutting out really bad, sir.
Am I?
Yeah, just so you're aware.
I'm sure it was very thoughtful.
Yes, it was very thoughtful. I'm sorry you weren't here to hear it. Well, I pulled my mic closer to my mouth, so hopefully that works. Again, Ganondorf, not to say that he will happen, and he's one of those characters that feel almost inevitable, and whether it happens, glad that we can say right out of the gate what the fans want in our World Smash. He's not a clone of Captain Falcon anymore.
Nope.
At all. That's true.
Nope.
At all. So that's great. That's great.
And he could like interacting with Ganon would be like a cool way to take him too, and like more, I would imagine him totally with his sword more prevalent too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something we were able to do with doing this project the way we did. Because this is the first time where Ganondorf is eligible, but Ganon himself is eligible from the first NES episode. So we were able to like kind of put a twist on the history of Smash. So it's like, yeah, Ganondorf's not here, but Ganon is, so he's technically here in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool, cool, cool.
All right, so I guess go ahead and reveal the next character on my list. You were. Let's see here. Who do I want to go for? Yeah, sure. Let's break the mold. No, let's break the mold a little. Last time around, in the first episode, we kind of kept our third-party characters for the end. But then our guest last time around, Curb Walker, he's just like, screw you. I'm going to do a third-party character so much earlier, and I'm going to beat his record now. And I'm saying right here, right now, Pac-Man! Get him in. Pac-Man, he's got his 3D form by this point, probably even before this point. He's absolutely iconic enough. Smash has been adding in his third parties already. I say nominate Pac-Man. Consider him.
Wait. Does Pac-Man actually have a 3D game at this point?
Yeah. I mean, technically, Pac-Man. I mean, well, it depends on what you mean by 3D game. I think he still had like a 3D game, but even then, like he had his whole like non-pizza cup shape. Like he had a character model besides just the pizza shape on the Super Nintendo. So we've had his 3D body. It was what I mean, besides just not being like the pizza cutter. Since way back in the day, Pac-Man 2, The New Adventures.
That's good, because it'd be a lot worse if he was just a pizza.
Yeah, if he was just a pizza still, he would not have been my list. I'd be like, no, I can't do that.
Yep. Before Pac-Man actually got into Smash, there were people on forums still going like, oh, hey, what if he was in his classic form? And I was like, what? in his sprite form. It's like, no. Maybe as the final Smash, which happened, but not otherwise.
Smash fans are Smash fans.
I think respectable pick. Respectable.
Yeah, totally. I'll come out of left field for this one. So Smash Melee introduced the first and only so far duo character with the Ice Climbers. And we talk about rewriting the history of Smash. So still filling this archetype of like, oh, we're pushing the limits of what this hardware can do, right? Like Mario 128 tech demo had 128 Marios on. They were interested in showing how they could push their hardware, and the Ice Climbers, Popa and Nana being on the screen, attacking and moving in one character slot, was a technical innovation at the time, and still kind of was moving forward, which is why they were cutting Smash 4, which was since the 3DS couldn't run them that way. All of that to say, I have a duo character, and it is Donbei and Hikari.
From Shin Onigashima.
From Shin Onigashima. The new island of Oni. So they are Oni fighting siblings. Donbei was born from a rice bowl floating down a river, and Hikari was born from a glittering bamboo tree.
Mythology. May you continue to give weird shit.
Yeah,
is it actually a game character?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
It was back on the Famicom.
Oh,
it was back on the Famicom, and then it was released on Melee. It was on the Super Famicom as well, the Game Boy Advance, the Virtual Console eventually. It was just never released in America, which, we're rewriting history here. It very well could after this. So it's kind of a top-down adventure game similar to Pocky and Rocky, where you are fighting Oni. You're fighting demons with magic and sticks and stuff. So they would work a little differently than the Ice Climbers do in their dynamic. I feel they would each have individual attacks that they could do, and maybe even swap off, kind of like Mario and Luigi in the Mario and Luigi RPGs. Not to get too much into the weeds right away with them, but that's the general idea. And why not? My pitch with them is the Ice Climbers were this random NES era character that they tossed in for the very reason of having a duo character. This is the same thing, just a different duo.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess good argument at least, because that's a flabbergast for me otherwise. But yeah, cool.
They had a trophy in Melee. They were acknowledged
Okay.
around that time.
Okay. I guess in this vein, I will unveil Mr. Game & Watch. So of course released in Melee. I think that he still deserves his spot and has like a rich history with Nintendo. And it's probably my preferred retro rep too. Just a lot of different micro games or like Game & Watch games are represented like through one character, and I think he's also like just unique with the 2D model too. So I think he fits in this vein, and I would put him forward to come back in Melee like canon.
Yeah. All right. Who do I want to reveal next? You know what? God, everything I feel like. All right, fuck it. Pokemon time.
Pokemon time. Okay.
There's 250. No, there's 249 potential Pokemon we could add because we already added 2 in the previous episode. So who did I choose? Meowth. Here's
That's
why I
right.
picked Meowth. Here's why I picked Meowth. Let's be honest. For the majority of Pokemon picks in Smash, it's very anime adjacent, right? It just is. Really, the only exceptions to this are Incineroar. Is that the only exception? And Pokemon Trainer. Pokemon Trainer would be an exception as well. Everything else, has a strong anime tie. And Meowth kind of fits in that same vein because he is the poster Pokemon of Team Rocket for the anime. For the games, it's just poison types in general, I guess. But Meowth, he's the most he's the most commonly antagonistic Pokemon in the anime. Mewtwo was an antagonist for the first movie, but Meowth is, in almost every single episode, except for I think the first episode. I don't think Team Rocket is in. I think it's the only time they weren't in an episode. And then there's the new series, which has its own new shit going on. But a lot of that combined with the fact that, hey, just having this feral cat jumping around and clawing at you, I think it can work.
Not bad. I'd also argue that even maybe Pokemon Trainer is influenced by the anime too, and by them having chosen Charizard and Squirtle specifically. I think that was probably I think that has some influence.
It probably has some influence as well. Also, just the fact that Charizard is to this day the most popular starter Pokemon. Period. But whether but the games may have, or the anime may have also influenced that statistic. Who knows?
True. Interesting pick.
True. Yeah, and we've recently passed in the last couple of months here the 25th anniversary of that Pokemon anime dropping. So, in case anyone wants to feel a little older than they probably really should, here's that tidbit. And Ash's journey as a 10-year-old finally came to an end.
But he's still 10.
He died.
Yeah, but he's still 10. In a way.
Of old age.
I mean, if you believe the theory, he could be in a coma. There's always coma theory.
That's a classic.
So we mentioned not necessarily going in the established order that we did in the first couple of episodes because Curb was like, "Oh, hey, I'm going to reveal a third party." Yeah, he threw us a curb, and so you revealed Pac-Man. My next character that I will reveal, you could say he's a hero, temporarily or otherwise, and that he's seen many a revival in his life as a soldier. I am, of course, talking about the one who was even better, the one who was only bested by the mysterious giant before coming back.
No! I will mute you right the fuck now! No! Move the fuck on! I know who you're actually saying, and I will just put their picture up. No!
It's a character that Hideo Kojima would have been talking with Sakurai about at this very time. I'm, of course, talking about Solid Snake from Metal Gear.
Dun, 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 dun.
The first third-party character ever in canonical Smash.
Well, revealed for Smash. 'Cause,
True.
him and Sonic were released in the same time. But, yeah. The first we ever knew that was going to happen. And it blew people's minds.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think it's a solid choice from them. I think they're, with so many Smashes already in Sakurai's pocket in this world, he would be much more apt to be like, oh yeah, Snake. I mean, yeah, if you want him in, man. So, like, we're buds.
Solid choice, you said?
Yeah, solid choice. Solid choice.
I think it's rather
he's not-
naked, personally, but,
He's not from Colony Omega, but what can you do?
We'll see.
I think solid as was.
I love me some Snake. I do wonder if maybe the time window isn't appropriate for him yet, just because Twin Snakes isn't technically out in this time period. But I mean, he'll eventually make it. I think that's for sure. I guess I'll unveil someone. I guess we're not really doing a theme here, so.
Just a quick comment on what you were saying there. Twin Snakes was a remake.
Yeah, I know, but like,
Solid. So the original Metal Gear Solid was released.
Sure, but I mean, there's like an argument to be made that the rivalry was fierce then, and like the relationship with Sony wasn't so amicable at that time, I guess. And
got you.
And if they didn't get their GameCube adaptation, it's like, But anyway, well, I'm sure we'll just save that for discussion.
Yeah.
I will unveil a character who actually is in Melee for a brief glimpse in the opening trailer, and I wish he was in so much sooner, but boy, am I glad he's here now. We got Ridley from Metroid. I think he could have been in as early as Melee with how they did him in Ultimate, and the too big theory was completely false. I think he works totally great in Ultimate, and I would love to see him have a more polygonal form in Melee. And like, of course, Samus's true arch nemesis. Like, there's no better representation for Metroid. I'd much rather have him than 3 more versions of Samus.
Yeah, like I will say I understand the concern about Ridley being too big and like how do you make Ridley work in Smash. I definitely get that, but they made him work. Like I'm sure they had the concern. Like, and it was a real concern. Sakurai wasn't really sure how to do it and still do Ridley justice. But I think the Smash Ballot was a lot of the told was like, okay, they really want this. I need to figure this out. All right. So you know what? I'm kind of on a similar line here. We got Ridley in Ultimate. Finally, huge fan favorite. Everybody wanted him in. Did very well with Smash Ballot. Another character in the same kind of position. In reality, they kind of were out of the public eye for a while, but at this point in the timeline, they still happening, baby. King K. Rool.
Oh, the king is back, baby.
DK64 is freshly released. He is still the villain. DK has not gone on a quote-unquote hiatus as of yet. King K. Rool's valid.
Yeah.
This is his prime time to actually show up. Like, him in Ultimate was like decades overdue.
Yes.
Definitely. It just came down to Sakurai being like, wow, I wasn't aware that people care. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Kind of like with Ridley, it was like, oh shit, people actually legitimately want him. Huh. Okay.
Yep. I'll follow in the same vein. There's a character that fills the same holes as you both had mentioned. Massive fan favorite of our time. Arguably, much past their prime, but in Ultimate, but was very well received. It's something that Zantok and I discussed beforehand, who's technically a second party character at this, but we're counting it as a third for time-proofing this series and not causing a headache. It's Banjo-Kazooie.
Oh, yeah.
Gaha, boys.
Bear and bird.
Eric's avatar.
Profile pic. I didn't think to
Yeah.
include him. Dang.
Really?
Oh shit!
We picked you
You got
specifically
bottles.
for this
You got
episode.
bottles instead.
Yeah, I was thinking like, I didn't realize Banjo released at that time period.
Oh my god.
Only on the PS1.
Oh, I knew it. I'm just kidding. I also got Banjo on my roster. Let's go. You guys saw this coming. I
We
mean,
did.
it's Banjo.
I mean, like I had just said, we literally picked you for the GameCube episode because that was when Banjo was going to be available.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Banjo, he is a legend and like just probably the best N64 game. That's kind of a hot take. I think it is actually my favorite. And just like a king of the platformers, died too young, was killed by Microsoft. But man, he could have kept on going. I love his game so much, and so iconic on the N64, even with the presence in Diddy Kong Racing. Like he was in his prime in this period.
You know, when Rare made a new Killer Instinct a few years ago, they added Rash from Battletoads as a guest character. What if they added Banjo-Kazooie as a guest character to Killer Instinct?
Oh, that would be amazing. I would love that.
It would be
I would take it.
far more violent than they have ever been. But goddamn, would that be
Poke some eyes
funny?
out?
I mean, I'm sure Kazooie could.
I wouldn't be. I would like take him in anything, to be honest. Like.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, I think, yeah. So this character was initially pitched in the previous episode, but they were cut because, you know, having a character of their design in the X4 polygonal style just felt wrong. But now that we're on the GameCube, and we can actually have, you know, like, smooth models, I think Mr. Game & Watch can work now. He's no longer held back by the technology of the time.
I didn't even consider that.
Nice. Neither did I when I included him on my roster in the last episode.
This is why I'm here. Because I...
Yep. Well, we've both got Banjo on our roster. He's cooking us pasta and lobster.
What?
And now it's time for. I also have a arguably, you know, off the wall retro pick like Game & Watch who fills a 2D landscape. And they're from the Donkey Kong series. I'm of course talking about Classic Kong.
What?
Let that soak in for a little bit.
Oh. Okay.
I'll let that soak in for a little bit. Classic Kong.
Oh.
The
God.
8-bit take on Donkey Kong. Now, why is Classic Kong here? Because when we started this game, on the NES roster, we included Donkey Kong. Or to be more exact, Zantok and Ebit included Donkey Kong. I just kind of sat there and watched it happen. And after that happened, you know, the Donkey Kong Country didn't exist at the time. This DK was throwing barrels. He was doing that stuff. he was from that time. And say the Super Nintendo era comes around, or the N64 at the very latest, we're renovating DK. He has his moveset that we know and love from Smash now because he's Donkey Kong Country DK in Smash. So we lost a moveset. We're resurrecting what we already put in once, putting him back on the table as an arguably as iconic inclusion to that 2D character landscape as Game & Watch, but just more off the wall because it didn't happen in our world.
More Jonno brand.
That's interesting.
It's Classic Kong.
Yes, I can see where your line of logic's coming from, but who's to say it wasn't Classic Kong the whole time and Donkey Kong Country didn't influence his moveset?
Got a point.
I don't think that happened. I don't think that happened. Donkey
So
Kong Country
why
was.
are you not?
It's,
This could be Donkey Kong Country Donkey Kong thing. Oh, that's interesting.
it was too big of a game to not. I think there
Okay,
was
I know.
such a big branding push back in the day. It would have for sure happened, even with Diddy on the roster. Yeah.
But what if classic DK being in Smash NES influenced Donkey Kong worked in Donkey Kong Country?
I don't play that level of chess.
Yeah, we know. You don't play any level of chess.
I play Fire Emblem.
Oh!
Yeah, I bet you if they did actually transition from NES to SNES, I bet you the SNES Donkey Kong would probably have barrels as a special move, just like in a DK Country style.
Yeah.
It probably would.
Be interesting to think about.
It's interesting. Well, I'm surprised it actually like had me consider classic Kong. That is, wow.
Yeah,
I mean,
for all of 3 seconds, I thought of this.
He gave a good pitch.
Yeah, it's a good
we'll
pitch.
see if he can
Stick
sell
the
it
sale.
all the way. Yeah.
Alrighty, I guess I'll do another repeat here, just kind of have some cohesion on the roster. I know there's a little bit of overlap I'm seeing, so I will unveil King K. Rool myself. I agree with what Zantok said about him being more relevant than ever, same vein as Kazooie and Banjo. This was their era, and they should have probably been in sooner, and yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, from one king to another. King Day-to-Day. They were, again, a new kit that was pitched in the previous episode, but didn't make it over Meta Knight. But I think now we can consider King Day-to-Day and have him in.
Cool. I do like my penguin action. He lays down like no one else.
You're very DM online.
Okay, so I'll go for a repeat here as well. I also have Ridley on my roster.
Oh, there we go. I guess we're on the same wavelength for this one. For a lot of these, honestly.
You have Classic Kong as well?
I
guess we'll find out.
Yeah, I'm saving that one for last. By last means 14th.
I mean, I don't know about you two, but I am legitimately saving one character for last.
Okay.
I'm
gonna bring it.
Yeah. You're gonna
bring it back to Pokemon for a sec. I'm gonna pitch my preferred Gen 1 over Meowth. It is Charizard. Like you guys were saying earlier, I caught you in a lurch or whatever, caught you agreeing with me here that Charizard is the most popular starter Pokemon.
It's true, and they were nominated in the previous episode as well.
And I'll toss you a bone here too. Ridley is a space dragon, but Charizard's just a lizard.
Yeah, not even a
so
dragon.
you don't have two dragons on your roster.
Yeah. They would have similar looks.
You know what's a real dragon though? How about a really tall tree? That's a dragon.
Tall tree.
Alolan Executor.
Has to.
Not a tall tree, just a tree.
The Great Deku trees in here. Let's go.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Wispy Woods.
Oh, true. Echo Fighter.
Okay. Only if they can bring Dynablade with them.
Oh boy, what a throwback.
Cool.
All right.
Big Al.
So, for my next character, I've got somebody that wasn't added into Melee, but did come into Smash later on. Oh, I almost couldn't find them because I actually had them out of alphabetical order. I'm just going to fix that because it would bother me. But it's Wolf O'Donnell. I picked him, as you can tell from the way things are laid out. He's here, but Falco is not for my list. I picked Wolf for the simple reasoning that between the two of them, I think he's more interesting than Falco to add in Smash next to Fox.
Muy interesante. My next character is Falco.
Oh, okay.
A little bit of a debate I can see start forming.
Might be.
Yeah. You think something happened?
I don't know. Did something
Oh,
happen?
I thought you were going to say something.
No, I said could be.
Oh, could be. Yeah, could be, but we'll get there when we get there. Falco is just a Falco guy.
I guess I'll tip my hand on this one, but I definitely agree Star Fox needs another rep. But I think I'm going to agree with Zantok on this one. Wolf is more interesting as the primary antagonist, and I think I like that duality of like Wolf versus Fox with a lot of other villains being added. So,
what about Pigma? Don't we ever consider him? Consider Pigma. He's lonely.
oh,
I would consider Pigma before I consider Panther, but he's still like character 5 or 6 on the list.
Mm-hmm. Andrew Oikany.
I would consider Andrew Oikany more than I would consider Panther, but less than Pigma.
Less than Pigma, indeed. I'm not sure where I'd quite place that whiny brat.
I mean,
what about Cursed?
Cursed is below Andrew Oikany and Panther.
Hell yeah, she is.
But below the Anglar Emperor, below the Aperoid Queen.
True.
Anyways, my next character, who also happens to be above Cursed. You know what? Yeah. Listen. There were again. A lot of these characters were nominated in previous episodes, and they just could not make the cut because we only have limited slots. This is one that I didn't nominate last time. Our guest did. Jill Valentine from Resident Evil. Now, in the last episode, I nominated Leon Kennedy because Resident Evil 2 was the newest game at the time. But now the timeline's moved a little bit further. Resident Evil 3 is now the newest Resident Evil game, so I'm nominating Jill.
What can I say besides
Snake.
Jill?
He was almost a snake sandwich.
God. Oh yeah, it's me.
Mamma mia.
Sheik is also on my list.
Oh. What?
I would imagine, Eric had mentioned Ganondorf and Ganon being a swap character. I feel like, this is naturally she can Zelda transform into each other just like they do in Melee proper.
Okay.
Yeah.
Feels weird, but okay.
Well, a little strange. See, I guess I'll also do a repeat to keep the suspense going. I'm gonna also throw in King DDD, or Day, or King DDD. But he's actually like my 13th. It's like he was definitely like my 13th on the roster. Like I'm not in love with the Penguin, but I mean I can respect him. I know why he's here.
Interesting. Okay. So something that I always find fun is just like kind of annoying. It's like the order of priority with some characters. It's like because you used to King Dedede was the last one you added. It's like curious because he was. I don't know. I don't remember the exact order for me, but he definitely was not my last character. He might have been like the second batch of characters for me.
Yeah, I've had some brush-ins with the rules of like the release timing windows, and that's probably the only reason Day-to-Day made it.
Yes. I forgot about that, honestly.
not to get too much into how the sausage is made, but to create the graphics for this episode, I talked to Flamezone about his roster ahead of time, and it was like, oh, I want Waluigi, and it's like, oh, Waluigi wasn't a character that existed yet.
Yeah.
Oh, I want Paper Mario, and Paper Mario wasn't a character that existed yet. I want Skull Kid, and Skull Kid wasn't a character that existed yet.
Yeah.
That's like,
Like,
oh.
we felt bad, but it's like we can't. They literally don't exist.
But like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I have one thing I want to bring up though.
Yep.
How come the
Yeah.
Great Bay is in melee, but Skull Kid doesn't get the pass?
It's easier to pull things from a location to make a stage when the game's not out yet than a character. Because characters might still be being worked on, being defined.
The dev time also, the window's a little different with our game versus like actual melee.
Okay.
And dead time from creating a stage is a lot less intensive than just making a character.
Which we saw in Ultimate, actually, with the Great Plateau Tower and New Donk City.
Yeah.
And that may be a reason why those stages kind of suck, because Sakurai didn't have the full dresser on.
Yeah.
Especially
Okay,
Great Plateau Tower is just bad. Anyway.
Yeah,
That's a fair point. It's a fair point.
All right. So let's see here. We got 5 characters left to unveil for each of us. I think for me at this point, Banjo-Kazooie.
Oh,
Come
yeah.
on. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
I never played it. I never owned an N64. I played on one, but it was mostly just Mario Kart. But Banjo-Kazooie just fucking rocketed. It was an instant hit.
Super Mario 64 defined the genre, and Banjo-Kazooie refined it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Phenomenal game. Tui, it's still good, but
I still
awesome.
I love it, but it's definitely there's definitely a lot of nostalgia for sure. But man, as a kid, I was just like I loved it. But
It was the modern platformer at the time. Nintendo took a lot of ideas from Banjo-Kazooie, Super Mario Sunshine, and still managed to make a worse game than Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Still enjoyable. I mean, you can't hate on Sunshine, but yeah, it's like those things like it's like nostalgia carries it so hard, and like you probably would have a kid play it nowadays and be like, this game fucking sucks. It's like wow.
The control returning to Sunshine with the controls, I'm like, oh my god! Like in some instances, like
that's fair.
It's unnecessarily difficult. But I mean, yeah, I do love it because it was the Mario of my time. So
to make that even worse, when they release it on Switch, the Switch does not have the same kind of L and R buttons that the GameCube had, so you can't just do partial streams with the flood nozzle. It's just all or none, which makes it so much more difficult to control.
Ooh. Yeah, at least the GameCube's triggers are like kind of like crunchy and like kind of like you can, if it worked well for a nozzle, I guess. But
yeah,
I didn't get that version.
I do not suggest playing Sunshine with Joy-Cons. Oh my god, it's haunting. The GameCube works. I mean, but the GameCube controller works enough to where I still enjoy it on the Switch. But yeah, you're right. And I blanked out. Nothing like having to have a full stream to make you feel old, though.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I forgot that it was my turn. So speaking of water, like Sunshine, and I got a guy who's blue and red and has a yellow snout or jaw, I guess. It's for alligator.
I thought you were going to say
Gen
Pelipper
2 of Pokemon.
Pelipper doesn't exist yet.
If only. Gen 3 wasn't anywhere near out yet. I think it's just a really solid choice. This is a character that has shown up in previous roster games that Lister and I have taken on, where it's like, what would be a logical Gen 2 rep? What would be a logical like water starter evolution to toss in there? Because inevitably we're gonna have all these guys. We're gonna have a fire starter, grass starter, and a water starter. I think
Are we?
is I think it's fair to presume. at the very least, because they're pushed so hard in promo for Pokemon games, often towards the forefront of the anime when they release too. So there's warrant there. For Alligator's a great character, I feel, too. He's because he's one of the starters. It's easy to imagine him fighting, and it's a starter. Yeah, it's a starter character, so you know they're going to be promoting this heavily with Gen 2's release around the corner.
I think it's respectable, honestly. I'm not bad for Gen. I think it's an improvement over Pichu.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Pichu.
Okay, well, I guess I will unveil a character that you guys also have, and it is. Oh, I guess Zantok doesn't. It's Zelda.
Oh, nice.
Well, I don't know
Yeah,
what
so
you two are on about with Zelda. What the fuck?
I think it's important to have the trio: Link, Zelda, and Ganon. I'm unsure about Sheik though. I don't know if that transformation is necessary, but we'll have to see.
Mm-hmm. All right. All right. Well, you know what? Nah. I'm going with my wretched choice now, and it's a familiar face because I tried to pitch him before, and I'm gonna try it again. Give me Balloon Fighter. Give me the Balloon Fighter. Like, yes, Ice Climbers are great, but give me Balloon Fighter. He's gonna have some aspects where it's like the opposite of Little Mac, where he has great air game, but not so great on the ground. And his balloons help him traverse through the air like a crazy person. Balloon Fighter would be great. I want him.
How many jumps would he get?
Do what? Oh, at least 2 extra in the air, at least.
I think he should get 10.
Yeah, I was gonna cap it at 5.
And Balloon Kid has been out for a long time past this point, so Alice could be theoretically a Alf-like alternate costume.
Yeah.
Theoretically.
I think it's more interesting than Ice Climbers anyway.
Those are some bold words.
Okay. Yeah. So I should say at this point that a king is on my list, and it makes it flush with the 3 of us. I have King DDD on my list. And boy, isn't he just a lovable scamp. Unlike Flamezone, DDD was in contention for my list last time around. I'm happy to pitch him again. I think his chances are pretty good this time around, all considered.
Oh, we don't have Meta Knight as competition anymore.
Yeah, we will see. We will see.
Okay. So I guess I will go unveil my next one. I guess I didn't really unveil my third party. And I guess it's a little bit it's like I think it's reasonable. And that would be Ryu from Street Fighter 2. And I think Street Fighter 2 definitely deserves its representation. I think even like Smash 4 is kind of like late for like Street Fighter 4 isn't what Street Fighter 2 was in its prime, and I think like putting Ryu closer to the Street Fighter 2 actual launch like just makes sense to have him here, and I think he is a great fighting game rep overall.
Ryu very nearly made my list in the previous episode. I originally had written down Leon and Ryu for the last episode, but then also like 2 Capcom characters. I don't think I can do that, and of them, I ended up dropping Ryu. But I'd love to have him.
It's a great choice. One without real contention. The only thing at this time is Capcom is pushing Street Fighter 3 hard, and it's not landing on Nintendo consoles. But consider the history. Street Fighter 2 was the best-selling third-party game on the Super Nintendo. Like, each iteration of it hit somewhere in the top 50 games sold on the system.
And it revolutionized fighting games.
Yeah, it was such a dramatic hit that I feel like Flamezone, you said Ryu is a great fighting game pick. I would go a step further. Ryu is the fighting game pick.
Yep.
Period.
Yep.
Nice.
Hence why he made it into Smash 4.
I mean,
Ultimately.
I don't know.
Mhm.
The Jurassic Park Warpath was a hell of a game.
I don't even know what that is, but yeah.
It's where you fight as the dinosaurs.
Oh, that sounds cool. I like the
It's so
Godzilla game on the
cool.
GameCube during this time. Yeah. good old, yeah, guy. Well, I hope that the T-Rex makes your list.
Actually, I prefer the Ankylosaurus.
I don't even know what that is either, but I think it's a dinosaur.
What the fuck is wrong with you? Okay, what?
I prefer Ducky.
You know what? You know what I prefer? My turn.
Right. Yep.
Let's get back to Pokemon. We have 3 Pokemon up on the board so far, 2 from Gen 1, 1 from Gen 2. Let's add another Gen 2 Pokemon into the mix. Now, I will say, I considered Charizard, I considered Feraligatr, but I opted not to go for starters. My reasoning was complicated. My reasoning for not including a starter was because everybody had their own starter. You know, you get the one, and it kind of felt a little strange to me. Not necessarily strange, but like I felt I kind of wanted to build up to the moment of a starter because it's part of like what the argument was people made to me about 3 houses with getting Violet instead of the other 3. It's like, oh well, if you include Dimitri, then what about if you like Golden Lions and Black Eagles and whatnot? So I was like, oh well, if I include fucking Venusaur, what about all the people that wanted Charizard or Blastoise? I was like, yeah, sure. That's fair.
That's tough, yeah.
Doesn't mean we can't. I'm just my own thought process here. So I kind of want to pick a different Gen 2 Pokemon that felt that they could be enough of a symbol of Gen 2. And honestly, it was hard. Like, there's a lot of standout Gen 1 Pokemon, but I felt a harder time picking a standout Gen 2 Pokemon that wasn't a starter or a legendary or an evolution or Pichu. So I didn't pick any of them. Instead, I picked Sudowoodo.
What the fuck?
It's an odd choice, sure, but if I'm thinking of Pokemon that are definitively Gen 2 Pokemon, well, Sudowoodo, you do have that special encounter with it outside of a route where you have to spray water on it and then it fights you, much like how you have to wake up Snorlax, and that to me stood out. Otherwise, it was going to be Heracross, which I like Heracross, yeah. But I also looked at what moves the 2 of them even had available to them in Gen 2, and I had an easier time coming up with a moveset in my head for Sudowoodo than for Heracross.
Interesting. I considered Heracross as well. It's just a character that looks like it's made for this kind of game, and it's one of the maybe the most beloved. I mean, I could easily be wrong. Gen 2 Pokemon, ultimately, although we don't have that future vision.
As Umbreon.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Umbreon.
Yeah. Not one of my favorites, but I know it's like Umbreon and Espeon top the list for evolutions for the majority of people.
Yeah, that's fair. I liked him in Coliseum anyway. I think my favorite Gen 2 Pokemon's probably Smeargle.
Smeargle's a good one.
I think Scizor gets slept on. Like, he's cool. He could have been a good rep.
Yeah.
It's very, totally. Looks a whole lot like Ridley, though. So red.
What the fuck? I guess man, this is red.
Get them big old claws.
Big meaty claws.
They both have wings.
Yep. See? Yeah. They're both bugs.
Yeah.
I think Ridley could be purple even in Melee, though.
Yeah,
you probably would have
Ridley is purple in like the Melo intro. The only reason he's red in here is because I didn't have a good picture of purple Ridley, kind of like from that time period. And this is how Ridley looked in Super Metroid. So.
Would be an easy alt, though.
Yep.
This Pokemon that I will introduce to the table now will not need any form of flame clock to resurrect because they're already a ghost. It's Gengar from Gen 1. One of the first Pokemon you see in Red, Blue, and Yellow. Fan favorite of Gen 1, as they well know at this point. One of the most popular, along with Charizard. And in the Pokemon anime, one of the first Pokemon that you see as well, since it's fighting Nidorino. Yeah, all the trauma from that previous episode over its pronunciation. I forgot what the name was entirely. Yes, that one. There's Gengar.
All right, Flamezone, you got 3 characters left, sir.
Alrighty, I guess if we're on the Pokemon train, I'll unveil mine as well. It's definitely an odd choice, and I definitely bounce between a lot of Gen 2s, and I like listeners' argument saying like if you choose a starter, others are left out. But I also don't mind. I also it's also like nice to have like such a recognizable Pokemon. And I guess I'll unveil it now. It's Bayleaf. It's not even fully evolved.
Yeah,
so kind of
what
in the
the hell?
Kind of in the vein of Ivysaur.
Your reaction to Sudowoodo, I'm just going to throw it right back to you at Bayleaf. What the fuck?
You guys might be forgetting that Bayleaf was basically Ash's... it is like ace besides Pikachu.
Bayleaf was his... Chikorita quickly evolved to Bayleaf. I don't remember if it ever became a Meganium, but it was a star piece of his team in the Jones run.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what really sent me this way, because I kind of wanted to... I was kind of like you either... And with Zantok saying, you either stay away from the stars entirely, or you like lean into them, I felt like, and just get that ball rolling. And I thought like, well, Meganium sucks. Like doesn't have any kind of great history, and Bayleaf is like almost a better rep than Meganium for like grass starters. And Froligator was a viable choice for me. Sneasel was actually up there for like repping the new dark type at the time. But I think leading into kind of a mix of Zantok's and John's thinking with the anime influence and the starter influence, I think Bayleaf is actually a viable roster choice for this era.
I mean, I will say that if we were introducing like a Pokemon trainer type character to this, and using Gen 2, Bayleaf would be my choice. I would go. It would be Cyndaquil, Bayleaf, and Feraligatr. That's what I would do if I was doing a Gen 2 Pokemon trainer.
I think I would almost do Totodile, Bayleaf, Typhlosion.
I like Totodile more than Cyndaquil and more than Feraligatr, but Cyndaquil I think works better than Typhlosion.
Maybe we can make a Pokemon trainer out of these guys yet. Sudowoodo, Bayleaf, all on the roster.
all the Cyndaquil fans would burn us.
And throw Charizard too. There's four Pokemon.
Yeah. It's gonna be Feraligatr, Charizard, and Bayleaf. That's the Pokemon trainer.
Hell yeah. Actually, it'll be pretty sweet.
All right. Well,
the trainer.
I think I've fooled around long enough. Fine. They're here. It's Zelda. Are you happy now? She's on my list. I can stop playing around. Zelda.
The fuck is she doing there?
I don't know. They transform into each other. She casts Nehru's love and whatever.
What an excellent card you played. Trying to fool us.
I had to do it. All right.
Sweet. Now then, on to... Okay, not too many left here. 2 left on my list. Who will be the next guy? It's someone yellow. It's someone round. It's someone who eats a lot, and I am not talking about myself. It's Pac-Man.
Waka waka.
Waka waka. Hey! We actually are the same person, I think.
That's terrifying. I don't want to be the same person.
All 3 of us are. An Omniglot. Okay, Flamezone.
Yeah, I'm realizing that it's pretty obvious that there's another in between Zelda and Ganon. They might be sharing a series, and it's none other than Skull Kid.
Marin from Link's Awakening.
Yes. Throw up Skull
Epona.
Kid, Zantok.
Epona.
Throw him up there.
Yeah, I'll throw up Skull Kid right here.
Yeah.
Here. Wait,
Hey, he's not showing up.
They're not eligible. They don't exist yet.
Oh
sorry.
no! What am I gonna do? I guess I'll have to throw in
Impa?
Sheik.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm actually genuinely surprised we all went for this. Cause I was when I put mine together, I'm like, oh, that's kind of like a space hog. It's kind of like, oh, it's like Zelda and Sheik. Is Sheik really necessary long term? But I'm surprised we all had the same thought.
I mean, it's questionable whether or not Sheik is necessary, but Ocarina of Time being incredibly popular, and also just the idea of like we don't have a transformation character yet, so kind of keeping the whole Zelda Sheik thing going. That's pretty much why I went for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ocarina was so big. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the presence of Ocarina that sets Sheik ahead of other characters.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Left
So
round, boys.
here's something I find interesting. The first two episodes, there was an unspoken rule where we all saved our single third-party character for last, and they were the last character at the end of our initial list. This time around, we all saved the first character at the front of our list for last. I don't know if it was intentional for you two. It was definitely intentional for me.
Oh boy.
Because I'm throwing a curveball. This is the Mario character. This is the Mario character that I did not think I was going to be nominating. I did not think I would ever nominate them. They were not on my original list. Originally, Roy from Fire Emblem was on my list. But I removed him because, we have Marth and we have Tiki. I didn't think Roy was really necessary. We don't need to do that. But it felt weird to me to not include an actual Mario character up for nomination. It's fucking Mario. I should have something here for Mario. But who did I choose? Who from Mario did I say we should add into Super Smash Bros. Melee? Well, the answer may surprise you. It surprised me, honestly. Because it's Dr. Mario.
What the hell? Okay.
I have a reason why I went Dr. Mario. The other characters that really felt like they were potential were Wart and Toad. Wart, I kind of feel like, I feel like he wasn't really much of a thing anymore. I want to do something that was more of a thing. In Toad, I just don't think he's there yet. Eventually, I think he'll be at the point where he can be considered, but I didn't feel like he was there yet. And, again, like Daisy's not really much of a thing too much yet. Waluigi doesn't exist yet. Paper Mario doesn't exist yet. So I went with Dr. Mario because we don't have a puzzle game character. And Dr. Mario is a puzzle game. And we can make him not just be a clone of Mario. So, Dr. Mario, he's here.
I guess it could be consideration for the Game Boy at the time. I guess I can see where you're coming from, but I definitely...
He's also...
I love the
Dr.
opportunity
Mario
to skip
N64. N64 Dr. Mario was also out.
True. That is true. I forgot about that.
There's an opportunity here to declone Dr. Mario.
That's fair.
Yeah, it would be. We did as much on this show actually.
Yeah.
The Dr. Mario episode, something fun to look back on. All the same. My final character, I didn't intend for this to happen, but my final roll.
There he is.
I will say he's not the last I had. He's not my number 13 on this list. He was one of the very first, if not the first characters. Like, all right, let's just slap this guy in here.
Yeah.
And I have nothing more to add that you guys. He's great. My reaction to his reveal trailer and Ultimate was probably the single most exciting moment I've ever had. And there he is. There he is.
Here. Yeah, I think my list, I was like Banjo and then a King K. Rool in that order is how it started for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Fair.
So I want to take you all on a journey
Okay.
of this slot, because this slot has been many things already. It started off as Paper Mario,
Rip.
and then I found out that I couldn't use Paper Mario despite being extremely prevalent on the N64 and GameCube. It was very, very sad. And then I said, okay, let's do Waluigi. And then Waluigi wasn't available. And then I was very sad. And then I said, let's do Baby Bowser. But I thought it was Bowser Jr.
Yeah, you said, to clarify, you didn't say Baby Bowser. You said Bowser Jr. And we're just like, he doesn't exist. And it's like, yeah, he does. He was in Yoshi. It's like, that's Baby Bowser.
I was like, oh. So, yeah, throw him up there. Throw up Baby Bowser. Just kidding. No, not Baby Bowser.
Hey, if you had given us Baby Bowser, I would have him up there. But you didn't give us Baby Bowser.
No.
And then we said, do you want Kamek? You said, ew. I'm just like,
I'm not that demented that I would add Baby Bowser to the roster. Oh my god.
we have classic dog on here and Dr. Mario.
So I decided to. It's maybe more of a hopeful pick, but I decided to have my Mario adjacent rep be Geno. So Geno, this super popular character in the future. I know it's he got a lot of traction later on, probably more in the Wii era and stuff, but I think that it could be a good reaction or like a good kind of callback to the relationship that Nintendo and Square had through the SNES era, and kind of just like, hey, this is our RPG rep for what was on the SNES and one of our popular one of the most popular RPGs that they had made at the time, and which was sorely lacking on the N64. I think Geno fits the bill, and it might be kind of iffy with character rights with him, but I think I'm still happy to put him forward as my third party. I know his placement's kind of odd, but
I will say that while right now the relationship between Nintendo and Square is not the best relationship, if any Square character were to slip past, it probably would be Geno.
I'll take it.
And something that Lister pointed out in our last episode too, when we were talking about Peach when she was in, there's a lot of Super Mario RPG influence in Peach's moveset in Melee, in our Melee. So it was on. So RPG was definitely on the table.
I mean, he's talked about how Geno was on the table in Brawl. Brawl is when Geno really got a lot of traction. And Zachary even said that, he considered him.
Mm-hmm. And then didn't. We even had that Beware the Forest mushrooms in the data.
Allegedly.
But yeah. There we go.
All right, so we have our cast of potential characters here. 39 slots. Some of them are doubled or tripled up, but we got to cut this down to 13. I see a few. I see a few that, in my opinion, are obvious needs. I see a few that, in my opinion, are not. But
let me guess. All of the obvious needs are on your side of the screen.
No. No. I know I have a few on my list that can definitely be dropped for some others, and I know there's going to be a few on your two lists that you are absolutely going to argue hard for, and I understand that. I will be very surprised if either of you allow me to not include Ridley.
We will see.
Yeah.
We will see where this conversation goes with our dearest Canadian friend.
Indeed. The question is always, where do we start? I don't think we start at third party. I don't think we start at Pokemon. And That's really what I say is we don't start with third party or Pokemon.
Could we go top left to the bottom? I think that's probably appropriate, maybe.
You want to start talking about Mario?
Maybe not.
Yeah,
Maybe we
that's what
should
I
start with
thought.
Donkey Kong and come back to Mario, maybe.
Okay, we can start with Donkey Kong. So King K. Rool.
Objections?
Yeah, we don't need him.
Yeah, King K. Rool is a sucker.
Okay.
Why would we need that guy?
Especially not when we have Donbei and Hikari.
Mm-hmm. They're not Kavesi soldiers, but what can you do?
In all seriousness, though, King K. Rool, huge character, literally. The Donkey Kong Country franchise was one of the biggest hits of the Super Nintendo, and then King K. Rool continued to be the main villain in DK64. Which actually, I don't remember if DK64 was released yet for the timeline, but if it's
It
not,
wasn't.
it is. Okay, yeah. I was about to say, if it's not, then it is in development. And I know that he's going to be in it.
Pretty carry on top, yeah.
Yeah, I think King K. Rool is an in. I think he's in.
I concur for sure.
Like Eric said, King K. Rool is definitely the cherry on our tops, and it would be wrong for him not to be in.
And with that,
green on green.
King K. Rool is our first character to make it onto this roster.
Oh, how that makes me feel in my heart.
I don't know that I care about your heart conditions, but okay.
It's Baron von Rolenstein.
It's also like one of those moments where we're kind of like going back and like fixing the timeline, because this is probably when he should have been in Smash, you know, like
I
agree. I mean, I'll disagree with that because Melee only has 25 characters. Meanwhile, we're building up to characters to number 39. We have a lot more room to play with. But for Melee itself, I mean, sure, if you cut out a lot of if like Perfect World, each of those clones could have been a different character. But in Melee proper, it was all those clones were one more non-clone character. So, but I will say he should have been in before fucking Ultimate. But Melee, definitely. I will say I think him not making the cut in Melee, there is a degree of sense there.
The one additional character could have been Wario. It could have been Meta Knight.
From what I've heard, I don't know if it's true, but from what I heard, it was Wario was the choice. I think it was either that or Day-to-Day. But the other thing with King K. Rool is we didn't even have Diddy Kong in Melee, so I would have Diddy before K. Rool, personally.
What about Diddy riding K. Rool's shoulders?
No.
Oh.
I guess I was saying that more in the context of a world where Smash did start on NES, I think. It's kind of
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I see what you mean.
Because then it would have been more appropriate to have been in there.
Yeah.
With a bigger roster, yeah.
All right. Generally, I think the obvious ones are the best way to start things out, because then we can get into the harder debates later. At this point, Jonno, what do you think is the obvious one next? Because I think I know who it is, but I don't want to just say like it's this character after I said K. Rool.
I would say the next obvious choice is Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah, it's Banjo-Kazooie. Let's go.
Oh. That's not where I was going to go.
To that sentiment.
That's not where I was going to go. Okay.
There's more than one, but I think, it was going to happen.
Yeah.
There's no way it wasn't.
We don't normally slot in a third party this early on, but the only other third party that we have up for debate that I think we could consider before Banjo would be Pac-Man. Because I think I put Banjo above all the others, personally.
Yeah.
But you both sound like you are extremely saying no, Banjo now. Banjo in now.
Yeah. If Banjo doesn't get in by the end of this, I'm gonna rage.
Oh, I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying like right now, as our second character, we're pushing through right away.
I think it's so obvious we might as well just rip the Band-Aid.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like Thanos. It's inevitable.
I mean,
The Thanos
he is...
game.
yes, the Thanos game where you wanted to cut Mega Man.
I don't remember that.
Because you wanted to replace with Mega Man X.
Oh, okay.
I do think it's a really cool choice, like how Mega Man X is the rep instead of the classic Mega Man, because it came on in like this universe. I think that's actually a cool decision you guys came to.
I mean, both X and Mega Man were up for debate in the same episode, and we went for X because he was newer at the time. He's got 3 games under his belt. Capcom's gonna push that.
Yeah. Where do we take the conversation now, boys?
Well, Rare is I guess Rare is done because Classic Kong isn't Rare, and I also don't want to discuss Classic Kong yet. I think that's what needs to be debated on later.
Yeah, we'll just see if you can fit in.
Yeah, I think at this point there are 3 characters to me that I think are easier to do early on, and then maybe we can move on to like what the next string is.
Mm-hmm.
The easiest of them is another one that we all have. Team Day-to-Day.
I think he is actually more flexible for my roster than it may appear.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you guys both feel just as strongly as me and John felt about Banjo, I think I would push back on that.
Okay. In that case, who do you think we should look at?
I think that we're more amicable about Zelda and Sheik.
Okay.
As a pair.
So here's the thought I want to bring up with Zelda and Sheik. I definitely agree on Zelda. I definitely agree that Zelda is in. Here's where I'm thinking with Sheik, though. And I'm not saying we confirm or deny Sheik right now. I just want to bring this up as discussion. But I do think Zelda in. And then we were discussing, like, we were talking about how, we have Sheik, transformation mechanic. You, however, Flamezone, also mentioned Ganondorf being able to transform to and from Ganon.
Mm.
So my thought that I'm bringing up is, I think we could potentially have all 3 characters, potentially. But I think having both Zelda Sheik transformation and Ganondorf transformation from the same franchise being introduced at the same time feels weird to me. Like, it feels a little heavy-handed.
Yeah.
So I definitely think Zelda is in for sure, and I think Sheik and or Ganondorf could be in, but maybe not have both sets of transformations. And I think the debate is, who would we want to transform more than the other?
Gotcha. I think that's actually a fair assessment, and also that means it's in my own best interest, if I care more about Ganon than Sheik, to not push Sheik through now then. So, okay, that makes sense. And I also agree that Zelda is a no-brainer for me personally too. Like, even if it's just her by herself, just as like the title name of The Legend of Zelda, and also female representation, a different fighting style, and like it's just important for her to be in there for me personally too.
Right. And
I agree.
And I'll say, as far as the transformations go, there's multiple ways to look at this. Adding in Ganondorf would be a way that you could mix up the existing moveset for Ganon, because a move would have to be dropped in order to have the transformation. But that could also make things difficult for Ganon, because maybe fans of the Ganon moveset that exists at this point in the timeline would be upset to lose whatever that move is that's gone. Whereas Zelda and Sheik being the transforming characters would be a more clean addition. So the 2 of them can be transformation, and then either Ganondorf loses out here, or he exists alongside Ganon as their own separate entities. And I think one way that you could argue that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, But Ocarina of Time only
The
has
timeline
Dwarf.
split.
No, not the timeline split. Ocarina of Time
Oh.
only has Dwarf. It does not have. There's
No, it
no
has
form
Ganon.
of.
It has Ganon.
It does have Pig Ganon?
Final boss has
Okay.
transforms. Yeah.
Okay, well, then remove that argument because if there wasn't a transformation, then I was going to say Ganondorf doesn't transform because at this point he hasn't yet, but I am mistaken. But the core of what I'm saying is Zelda in for sure, and then one of them transforms. Was it Ganondorf and Ganon, or is it Zelda and Sheik? Discuss.
So Zelda's in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's tough to say. It's tough to say because you're right. I mean, Ganon has existed since the NES Smash. We are removing a move for him, but I think whether we now Ganondorf is a character that will realistically come back into discussion again and again, maybe until he's included. So we're gonna face this eventually anyway. I feel that it makes sense to have Ganon and Ganondorf transform just as a speak, because that's what they do in Ocarina of Time. Both entities do this. But I see your argument that Zelda and she cleaner transformation mechanic, potentially being the first transforming character in the game would make more sense for them. I also can see a counter argument where it's like, why not just have them all transform? It doesn't matter. So, what does Flamezone think?
Yeah, it's a good point. I do agree. Now that Lister kind of brought that up, I do actually agree with this line of thinking that two transforming characters from the same series is redundant, I guess. And I think like longevity wise, like like Ganon is really important up to the N64, but now Ganondorf is the guy in Twilight Princess, and like it's like he's gonna be way more important than like Sheik's gonna fall off in relevance hard, and Ganondorf is gonna be relevant throughout. And I think I would put my hat in for Ganondorf over Sheik as a transforming character.
As a point to that, though, at this point in the timeline, we don't know that that's going to be the case. We don't know if Sheik's going to come back. We don't know if Ganondorf is going to come back.
True.
Wind Waker is going to be the next Zelda game. I don't know if it's development at this point. But Wind Waker, it does have Ganondorf, but he's a very different looking Ganondorf. And there is no Sheik, but there is a Tetra. But we don't know. We don't know what's happening at this point in the timeline.
I would potentially argue if it in the world that we choose one. I would potentially argue Ganondorf as well over Sheik. Just looking within the structure of Time, Ganondorf is the main villain. He's the crux of the entire story. He's why Link and Zelda are game. Sheik is a side character to what Zelda's doing. She's a part of the plan, but she just kind of shows up. It's like, oh yeah, I'm Sheikah, and that's kind of the whole of it. There was a lot of interpretation that had to be done with Sheik's moveset in the way that they did. So, yeah.
Fair.
Let's see.
Fair.
Mm-hmm.
But my thought was actually go to prioritize Sheik over Ganondorf. I'm seeing the arguments you guys are making, especially with Sheik. All what Sheik does in Ocarina of Time is she pops up, she teaches you a song, she disappears. But even then, she is still more prevalent than Zelda is in that game. Ganondorf is the big bad who you fight against. Sheik is more your ally that pops up a lot to help you out. But, they've been inventive with it. I think, honestly, the biggest argument for me between them is one character, you have a clean introduction. The other one, you are going to be altering something that exists already to make it fit. And it's just the debate of, do you want to change whatever the hell moveset Ganon has at this point to allow him to become Ganondorf?
Wait,
Yeah,
could you rephrase that again? Sorry.
I'll say that the biggest argument that impacts my mind with the two of them is with a Zelda Sheik transformation. You have a very clean introduction. Neither of them have been in Smash at this point. They're both having their movesets invented for
Oh
because
yeah, yeah.
because much like Sheik, Zelda doesn't do anything in Ocarina of Time, so they're making up the moveset for both of them anyways. Meanwhile, with Ganondorf, you have to take an existing character with Ganon, remove part of him, whatever special move that would be, and then pluck in the transformation mechanic to connect them together.
Okay, well, I guess I have two counterpoints then. I guess the first counterpoint is if you were a Ganon fan, what move would be so cool that you would be upset that you get a Ganondorf in there? You know, like kind of like it's like sure, like if you're missing, like say Donkey Kong transformed into Funky Kong, you lose his down B. Is that like the end of the world? Like I don't know. Like I think that you'd be pretty happy with it's like oh we got like an awesome new move maybe you know like the other way around. And secondly, if we don't love the transformation stuff, he could honestly be a separate character.
Oh yeah.
And like you're saying with the Wind Waker part too, like he actually might have a complete like relook in like the Wii version that comes out.
Yeah.
Like, he might look like Wind Waker Ganondorf, and then Ganon can look like OOT Ganon still, you know, because I'm imagining the pig form might get an upgrade or maybe not, but
Oh,
yeah, it's
absolutely.
just
I'm not saying that we can't potentially have both Sheik and Ganondorf. Because like if we, I'm just saying like only one transformation that the other character still makes it in, then they're just a solo. And whether they're, and you know maybe they make it in Melee, maybe they make it in Brawl. I don't know. I'm purely coming at this from the angle of what transformation do we prioritize, and then the other character doesn't get confirmed or denied yet. They stay on the table, and then we loop back around later.
in
But
that
you are
sense,
saying
yeah,
one
go
of
ahead,
Sheik or Ganondorf. Sorry. So you are saying though we probably should say yes to one of them though.
Yeah, say yes to one of them as the transformation mechanic, whether that means Zelda becomes Sheik or Ganon becomes Ganondorf. We're saying yes to one of them, and the other we're saying we'll talk later.
Okay. Well, I think in that context, I think Zelda Sheik like has to be the transformation one. Otherwise, they don't make as much sense separately. In that context, personally. Do you know what I mean? Like kind of like it would be weird if Ganondorf swapped and then Sheik and Zelda didn't if they were all on there.
Yeah, I mean it's weird now. I understand why the transformation was separated with Wii U, but we got back Pokemon Trainer. It just feels weird to have Zelda Sheik be separate and why Samus and Zero's and Samus are separate. What?
The more we're talking, the more I'm actually like okay not including Sheik. is that bad?
No.
But I think I want a Ganondorf train personally, but yeah, I don't know if we want to make a call or not, but there is an argument all three can make it too. That's the tricky part, like because the Ocarina is that big of a game at this point.
Yeah. Jonno, what do you think?
Sorry, my mic reset, which maybe will help with audio. But I kind of caught the gist of it. So I would say I agree with everything Eric said.
And what did Eric say?
He said that Sheik makes the most sense at this junction.
Well, he did.
That's
say
a part
that,
of what I said.
Yeah, that's part of what he. But Flamezone argued both for and against Sheik. So it kind of sounds like, from the way this discussion is going with these two characters, that we should table the discussion for now, and then kind of come back to after we have less slots left, and then decide first of all if we're going to be able to have all of them or not, and then who the transformation would be if we can't have them all, and what makes sense.
Okay, I agree with that,
Sure.
and I'll also propose a new argument. Let's do something that's like not as extraneous, I guess. Let's do the Star Fox rep. I think I don't know if you guys agree, but I think that we only need one Star Fox rep.
Yes. We only need one.
Hell, we could go for 0.
I mean, theoretically, true. We could go for none of them.
Mm-hmm.
But I
But
think one should.
Yeah, like Star Fox is
yeah.
big. Star Fox is big still
Star
at this timeline.
Fox 64 made a big splash. It's sensible. But who's it gonna be? Oh buddy.
Hey John, you're in a defensive position. We'll give you the floor here.
Falco prefers the air, and he's blue and rebellious.
Okay.
Ultimately, we have characters that fit the floor. I think in the grand scheme of things, there's going to be room for these 3 characters potentially on the overall roster. Just given where there's going to be so many characters we're dealing with. Falco's still an important part of the story. And we see, canonically in Smash, as they're all pseudo clones of each other. There's a way to make them all unique enough. Okay, yeah, there's 100 characters here. I think this is. Ultimately, though, to fess up, I have Falco here on the table to discuss as the canonical Star Fox pick at this with Melee, but I don't feel passionate about him to the nth degree. Wolf, funnily enough, was a character that was hell. He's not in. So there's an argument for both. Wolf has the majority, and I'm comfortable just saying, okay, let's do Wolf.
We're comfortable with Wolf then? Yeah. Okay, so did you say that you mentioned that Wolf was on your consideration list before?
Oh, I considered Wolf as well.
Okay.
I mean, it's not. Yeah, it's not like Falco is 10 degrees higher than Wolf on my personal, bias list.
But they were more or less close enough, and since the 2 of us both with Wolf, you're basically saying Wolf is fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So
So are we with this format? Do you also X off a character from each other roster just so someone is crossed off then?
Yeah, that way I only have 13 check marks to count, and I don't have to be like, oh shit, there's 3 Zeldas. I have to remove 2 when I'm counting check marks.
Oh, gotcha. So is it possible to pass someone through without cutting off Falco then?
Yes, we
Okay.
theoretically leave Falco on the table. Are you arguing that?
No, I'm okay with 1 rep. I'm just curious. Wasn't sure how it was going to work with the Xing. Sorry.
Oh yeah. Like we could say we're adding in Wolf, but we could in theory leave Falco on the table. But X's are effectively either there's a duplicate character where you added one of them on, so it's just clearing out the board. But then also this character is out of the running, but nothing is stopping us from saying, hey, let's revisit this character.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, gotcha.
All right. We have 4 characters out of 13. I think I am not ready for the Pokemon talk. I think at this point,
Hell yeah, we do.
no. In my mind, I know you said this character is flexible in your list. In my mind, Dedede is still high up there, but I'm gonna guess that for the 2 of you, Ridley is above King Dedede. Would that be correct?
That is 100% correct for me.
Jonno?
It's hard to say. I really like both these characters and think they should both be in the roster this time around. I think maybe loosely Ridley may have the slightly higher spot DDD.
I mean, for me, King Dedede is a lot of slots above Ridley. He wasn't on my list, so no shit. But honestly, I think. What? No, go on.
Why wasn't Ridley on your list?
Ridley wasn't on my list. I don't even know if he was on my short list. If I'm being perfectly honest with you, I'd have to. Where is that so I can see it? No, yeah, he was on my short list. He was on my short list of 30 something characters. 30 to 40 characters. But I ended up not including Ridley. I just didn't feel like we needed him yet necessarily. Like part of it is, there is yes, we know Ultimate settled the size debate, but I felt like it could still theoretically kind of be on the table here. Not as a super strong argument, but I just felt like having something Mario was more important to me. Having King K. Rool was more important to me. Having Zelda and Sheik was more important. King Dedede, a second Star Fox character, a couple Pokemon, third party, some retro characters. All of them were just higher up in priority to me than either Ridley or a second Metroid slot. If we had more slots available, he might have made my roster. But that's the reason he was on mine. He was lower in priority for me personally. That being said, I would be okay if we wanted to say King Dedede and Ridley are both in right now.
I think my only caveat to push King Dedede through is if we can agree that there is a maximum of 2 retro fighters added.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Okay. Push him through.
All right.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. Ridley and DDD, yeah, I'm basically 50-50 on both, but I think...
And then the insinuation there was that Mr. Game & Watch, Pac-Man, and Balloon Fighter are all retro characters.
Yes. Wait, Pac-Man?
Yeah. Pac-Man I would consider a retro character.
He's in the third party for me. The retro
I
is
think he carries,
Balloon Fighter, Mr. Game & Watch, and Donbei and Hikari.
I think I want to group in Pac-Man on that one.
I am not willing to say that. Because if we
Okay,
want to say
no
Pac-Man
DDD.
is retro, then Ryu is retro.
That's fair.
Classic Kong is retro.
Classic
That's
Kong.
true.
So would Gino.
Yeah. But I just wanna let's lay the rule then. I'll pass Dedede through, but 2 retro characters max, including everything we just said.
Retro characters being defined as Balloon Fighter, Mr. Game & Watch, and Donbei and Hikari.
No. And Classic Kong
Not
and
that
Pac-Man and
Oh!
not that this rule holds any weight. Anyway, so King DDD's in regardless.
What?
Yep.
I think I got tricked here.
Welcome to
You
the
can
show.
vote no on DDD, and he and I will still vote yes, and we're good.
Okay, that's fair. That's fine. That's fine.
My point is, if we're going to start loosening like what we're calling, it's like I think that yes, Pac-Man is an old character. I think the label of third party trumps the label of retro. Similarly to Smash Ultimate, some people say Simon Belmont is a retro character. I do not. I say he's a third party character.
I feel like there is like that crossover though. But
You could say so, yeah.
okay. Well, you know what? I mean, like Day-to-Day's fine. He was my 13th pick, but I mean, I can see the appeal.
I guess, like I asked Zantok, with Ridley, why wasn't DD? Just out of curiosity.
So, what'd you ask, John?
Oh, I said, why wasn't DDD higher up on your list? Just out of curiosity.
High up on my list. I kind of felt like I liked how the roster was looking with the potential kind of pairings of hero and villain. I know it's true nowadays. Like Kirby, Day-to-Day, and Meta Knight are all in there, but I liked how this roster was shaping up to be like Fox versus Wolf and Kirby versus Meta Knight, and that's kind of just kind of like those kind of pair offs makes it so Day-to-Day wasn't as valuable to me in this one.
Okay.
Well, what I would say to that is, Meta Knight's an anti-hero.
So is Day-to-Day.
I agree.
Oh,
Neither
now we
one
need
of
to let
them
Marks in for
truly
the villain.
fit the role of villain. I mean, and really, Wolf is an antagonist, but he's not a villain either.
That's fair.
But since retros have been brought up, I think
Okay.
now is a good time to look at the retro characters.
Sure.
And figure out who we're going to include. Smash Melee, proper, added in Game & Watch. Meanwhile, Danbei Hikari here is a quote-unquote replacement for Ice Climbers, while Balloon Fighter is a new idea. How are we feeling? Because I definitely agree not all three of these. One or two.
Oh, I thought we were talking about third parties.
No, I said retros.
Did you include Classic Kong in there?
I
think he fits, right?
I wasn't, because in my mind, when I'm thinking of characters that are like quote that are like have that retro label, it's things that aren't aren't in like a bigger franchise. You know, like I wouldn't call Wart a retro character. I would call Wart a Mario character. But otherwise, things get messy. But I see what you're saying with Classic Kong, especially considering Jonno included Classic Kong as an alternative to Game & Watch. So fair enough.
And I guess like also too, if the difference between those two, that example between Wart and Classic Kong is like Wart in a modern Smash would probably be like 3D and not like a 2D sprite.
Fair point.
And Classic Kong would, huh?
I know, I was saying fair point.
Oh, you would, yeah. And then Classic Kong would still be like that 2D retro look. I think that's the difference for me.
Fair.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, let's start there. Classic Kong versus Mr. Game & Watch.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, I think even above the number of retro character debate, one flat character.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fair point. I almost like the idea of Classic Kong over Balloon Fighter, but that is a fair point about the flatness. Is Zantok seething? I can't tell. He probably is.
No, I'm not seething.
Oh, okay.
Well, you have to. I will weigh. They're two good choices. They're two good choices. Mr. Game & Watch is the obvious choice. I mean, he's from an earlier time than even now about the same time as Donkey Kong, I suppose, considering the arcades. But from a flagship handheld, it's Nintendo's first foray into consoles, technically. Although Game & Watches, they were watches sold in stores. It's a little offbeat. It's almost halfway a toy rep too, acknowledging Nintendo's earliest roots. And I really like Game & Watch's inclusion because it's so off the wall, and yet it happened, and it makes so much sense now that it did. It's something, whether he's included now or later, eventually I would probably like to see him in this game's roster as well. Classic Kong, again, it's a revitalization, a moveset gone past that was already canonical to our universe's Smash in the NES era. I would say with Donkey Kong Country's popularity, even if DK had a barrel throwing move or whatever, by and large, this moveset would be adapted into a country style moveset. So most of Classic Kong's abilities would be left on the shelf. So there's that argument, and you put Game & Watch and Donkey Kong next to each other. They're both very iconographic of this era of Nintendo, and very prevalent to the time. So you can't go wrong either way. But Classic Kong is an interesting alternative to the norm at this point, and I think it's a good idea. I don't think it's as off the wall as you would think once you look into the reasoning.
I agree with that. I do think Classic Kong. I mean, obviously they were not on my list. I didn't even consider the idea. But I would say it's an interesting choice. It's a very interesting choice. Yeah. And when I first saw you give me your list so I could build up the graphic, I was like, "What the fuck? You're stupid. You're pulling another Jonno craziness on me." But your pitch does make sense. Your pitch makes sense for Classic Kong. to kind of like restore a character that is quote unquote lost because Donkey Kong became modernized with probably the N64 version of Smash, I would say. Maybe it was like, it was a gradual process, who knows. So it does make sense. My counter argument is going to be very simple. We did not add a retro character into any previous Smash game yet. Mr. Game & Watch is the perfect first choice for a retro character. There is no better choice for the initial retro choice, in my opinion, than Mr. Game & Watch. He is the retro pick.
And this is in the context like of NES, like pitching them were current at the time.
No,
right?
this is pitching Mr. Game & Watch for Melee.
Right.
I'm saying, like, since we don't have any retro characters yet that were added, we considered a couple in the N64 episode, but none made it through.
Okay, gotcha.
But if we're going to have any, the first one, it just makes sense to me to be Mr. Game & Watch, the man that started it all.
Did Mr. Game & Watch start it all? Let's see.
I mean, he's older than Mario and Donkey Kong. Because in the Pac-Man reveal trailer, they first showed the little peek, the Mario and Donkey Kong peeking their little heads up saying, here's the year they came up with. And then they picked up Mr. Game & Watch that was older than that. And then they're also just like, and there's Pac-Man, who's just as old.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you can't argue that, and I won't. Just a reiteration. I think they're both about standard for this time. So it's one or the other, and either one's.
Yeah, I really like the idea. I think John's pitch almost sold me more on Game & Watch. I use a strong pitch. I think the biggest deal breaker for me, or like thing that pushes me away from Classic Kong, is that it's also kind of another Donkey Kong rep, and I don't think they need the two in this entry. And I think that's what also helps me drive towards pushing Game Watch as my rep.
If it was Dixie being proposed for a second Donkey Kong rep, or I guess technically a fourth Donkey Kong rep because DK and Diddy are already in, then I'd be much more willing to consider Dixie than I would be to consider Classic Kong or Cranky Kong or Funky or who the fuck else is eligible at this point. Stanley the Bugman, DK. I would consider Donkey Kong Jr. more than I would consider Classic Kong, if I was perfectly honest. I'd be willing to consider Classic Kong, later edition.
Yeah, I was gonna say it might be worth to revisit in the future, like when more time has actually passed in universe, because I feel like it hasn't even been like that long. Well, maybe, but I think it's a cool one to revisit. I'm gonna put for Game Watch.
Jonno?
Huh? Yeah.
Anything to say?
No.
Okay.
It's Game and Watch. It is.
You don't want to. Nothing.
Wait, I don't want to what?
Okay. It sounds like he has given up the pursuit.
Oh, I just there. You guys faded out for a second. I couldn't hear what all of what Flamezone said.
Oops.
But yeah, it does kind of hit that. I don't feel like a further argument for Classic Kong at this point would be conducive to time. Game & Watch is a fine choice for this time. It's not really an arguable pick. So it's cool. But I do think Classic Kong is something we can talk about later.
I agree.
And I am looking forward to talking, a couple iterations down the road to having that roster be more open, because that's where we may have more off-the-cuff picks so far, because I will say the trend thus far has been I'm kind of presenting a character or two each time. It's like, oh, this is different from the norm. And then there's still some pre-established, inner headcanon. I think the most arguable one at this point was probably Captain Falcon's inclusion. It's like, well, he just feels right because he's in our world already. So
Fair.
there's still
That's fair.
there's still that kind of in the
Bias,
meta.
yeah.
It's like
It-
I feel like why
and
we
it's
chose
hard to
DK
get
in the
away with
NES
that.
episode. I
It's
feel
hard
that's
to
why.
get away from
Yeah,
that.
I feel like that's why we chose Falcon over Ryota. I feel that's why we chose DK over DK Junior. It just kind of is what it is. So when we get into later episodes, time sync as it may be, I'll have more of the floor with these weird picks.
I mean, it's going to get stranger as we go along because with each episode, we're adding more and more of the gotta haves of these characters. Some Smash characters will most likely not make the
Never.
cut in the end because
But if
they
you're
aren't high priorities. Like Zelda
Mhm.
Sheik, or maybe not Sheik, but Zelda feels like one you gotta have of this entire roster. She's like I
the
don't know, she's number
namesake
one.
of the franchise.
Yeah, she's one of the most missing.
Mm-hmm.
But there will be other times as we get less and less characters that are Smash canon that really felt necessary that we had to get through first, and
Yeah.
more and more characters will be added each time. Lists are gonna get weirder.
Yeah,
Lists
and
are gonna
it's
get
almost
weirder.
it's also like if you're the guy that like pitches Pichu in the ultimate episode, it's like, what's wrong with you? Like at that point, right?
Hey, I'm sure there's some people out there who think Pichu is their favorite Pokemon.
Oh yikes! They probably eat a lot of glue.
Yeah. This early on feeling of deflation must have been what Sakurai felt every time he tried to pick Piranha Plant up in Ultimate.
God. All right, so
Now what do we do?
I'm
We're still on classics, I guess.
gonna pitch the question: do we pick a second retro pick right now? Do we pick our first Pokemon right now? Or do we look at a second, third party right now? How are we feeling, boys?
What does our guest think?
Oh man, the thing is, I can't shake the Pac-Man and retro association. Like a world where it's like Game and Watch, Pac-Man, and Balloon Fighter slash Jonno's twins. There, I don't like that world. I don't know.
Okay.
So
Well,
yeah, I'm kind of down for a third party though.
how about this then? Let's ignore Pac-Man for the moment, and let's look at Jill versus Snake versus Ryu.
I like that. I like that.
Whoever we don't choose isn't necessarily gone, but let's pick one of them to include now.
I like it.
All right. So I figure we should all just basically say why we chose each one, give our arguments for each of them, and then kind of go from there. I guess I'll start out. So Jill Valentine, I included Leon Kennedy, as I mentioned in the previous episode, and our guest of the episode, Kurt Walker, had nominated Jill. He nominated Jill, we didn't know what each other was doing. I nominated Leon because it was the most recent Resident Evil game. Resident Evil is huge. It's a horror franchise, which we don't really have represented at all yet. And then the question of guns versus not guns. Personally, I don't think it's much of an issue. I think it's kind of overblown. But even then, they can still toss zombies. That's what Jill fucking does in Marvel's Capcom 2. We did end up not including either of them. We included Barman instead. But Kurt Walker's argument for Jill was, much the same argument as mine, but he went Jill over Leon for another female character, which, kind of makes sense. The reason why I switched to Jill for this one is because we are now at Resident Evil 3. That is the newest game of the timeline. Jill is the main character of the game. She was one of the two possible main characters in Resident Evil 1. Missed out on the second game, but now she's the lead in 3, with the next closest thing to a lead being Carlos. But Jill is the main character 3. It's not like the previous two games where you have Jill's story and Carlos' story. It's Jill's story. That's it. So that's pretty much why I included her. You get some horror, you get another big popular game, and it's another female character.
Cool. Again, Snake at this point in the timeline, in our to go back into what I was saying earlier, like, oh, you included Cap. This timeline, this is Sakurai and Kojima are friends. This is Kojima started haranguing Sakurai about including Snake in Smash. At the time, it was, I think it was too late in the development cycle to happen, but who's to say, with Smash having been out for longer, Kojima doesn't beat the dev time to the punch this time, and he's like, oh, hey, at the dev time for Melee, Sakurai, would you consider Solid? And Sakurai can be like, that's kind of weird. We haven't had Nintendo console since the Game Boy and NES. And Kojima's like, who gives a crap? And that could potentially influence Twin Snakes coming out on the GameCube earlier. Who the hell knows? I don't want to get weird headcanon too much.
I mean, it's incredibly possible that did happen in reality. That conversation is part of what got Metal Gear to appear on GameCube. Who the fuck knows?
Yeah. I mean, it's true. I ultimately think it's why Snake got in Brawl, period. I mean, it was kind of an off-the-wall pick if it weren't for Kojima's intervention. But, you know, in invoking that, because Sakurai's a dev in this world as well, it's still fully possible. Snake would appear probably much as he does in Smash proper already. We know and love him. Maybe there's more of an opportunity to include stun guns or something. I think he and Jill fill a very similar box, just naturally both being from M-rated shooters, and both being from third-party companies that are very tight with Nintendo. So it may be one or the other, and they're both characters that have companies that have a character in the game already, with X and Simon. So we will see where that goes.
Could I make an argument on why your characters wouldn't work before I talk about Ryu?
Jesus.
Is that okay?
Go for it.
So I think that something we're overlooking here is that these are M-rated characters, and in the time frame this is releasing, there is a lot of concern around video game violence with the Mortal Kombat congressional hearings in the 90s and the release of Grand Theft Auto 3 in 2001, which caused a lot of controversy surrounding video game violence. And even if they were planned to release, like Snake or Jill, I think if GTA 3 came out and that controversy was massive, they might even get scrapped in that universe. And furthermore, even though the companies themselves are friendly with Nintendo, they're also way more Sony adjacent, which is it's not a great time to have them represented on a Nintendo console with how prevalent Sony's rivalry was at that time.
I could see that I could see your last argument with being prevalent with Snake, although I will, in Jill's defense on that one, Resident Evil 1 and 2 did come out on the N64. There was a Resident Evil game on the Game Boy, and this was the era where Capcom would start releasing all of their titles, 0, 1, 2, 4, several Resident Evil titles on the GameCube ultimately.
One was on the 64?
Wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
What the hell? I actually didn't even know that, to be quite honest.
Yep. That's the only reason why Leon made it onto my list in the previous episode. It's because I found out, oh shit, Resident Evil 1 and 2 were on N64.
I literally did not even know that. I thought it was like for sure a PlayStation exclusive.
So did I, honestly. So did I. And to kind of continue, since you threw up a counter argument, I'll throw up a counter. If the fact that Capcom is very PlayStation friendly is a factor against Jill, then it's a factor against Ryu.
It's true.
But I guess as far as the violence is concerned, honestly, I don't see it as an issue. I really don't. Like they don't have to have, like, look at Snake in Brawl and Ultimate. Yeah, he doesn't have guns, he has the explosions. They can go that same route.
I don't know.
I will add, that was actually my argument against Jill or Leon back during the N64 episode. I felt like, we were still in the 90s, which was a much more conservative time than now in the West. And yeah, that could be extended to this period of time, just maybe a little less. Grand Theft Auto 3 and all of that nonsense at the time. Yeah, that was very prevalent. You're right. And I know that in my house growing up, if there was discussion, any inkling of controversy, like, oh, there's an M rated, it was already enough that I was like 8 years old buying a teen rated game when Melee came out. But yeah, I get the point, definitely. Nintendo did, like they were releasing their first M-rated games during this era. Like Eternal Darkness came out in 2002, Geist came out in 2005, and those were Nintendo games. But at the same time, I see where, maybe they wouldn't want to place them and even if they're developing M-rated titles in this era, having those characters alongside Mario and Pikachu might be another thing.
And I'll also say that, like, if we were talking about Mortal Kombat, I would be with you, because Mortal Kombat isn't in Japan. They don't release in Japan. For they're extremely gory games, but I don't think Resident Evil and Metal Gear quite are the same way. Like we're not talking about games here where you rip out your opponent's spine and then beat them to death with it. We're not talking about a game where you can run over hookers. We're talking about a game where you shoot zombies or enemy soldiers. A little bit different, in my opinion.
Sure.
I guess I agree with you. There's a less degree of severity, but I still think that it's like a top of mind issue in that time frame. But I guess I should also like I should also argue for Ryu, not just like shit on your guys' picks. But I like John said. John had a really good pitch for Ryu too about he is like the fighting game rep, and with like the massive success on the SNES, is also what trended me towards this direction too for Ryu. But and now like the Street Fighter 3 Capcom thing also makes it kind of hairy too. And I think even like all these circumstances are kind of what even lead us to the decision just to pick one too.
I also think this is really the first title, since it's with a GameCube controller, where Ryu's full moveset could really be taken advantage of and made into.
That's a fair point too. Yeah, I think my stance, I know it's kind of it's like selfish, but I would stand for Ryu. I think it's just one gen too soon for Snake and Joe.
Here's the part where the three it's a Western down. I pick my.
I mean, here's what I will say: Jill and Snake. I don't think we need to have Jill and Snake, but I really do not see the problem with having one of them. I mean, again, going back to the whole Snake and Melee thing, Sakurai didn't turn Snake down because he thought it was going to be a mature rated character or a gun issue. He turned Snake down because it was too late. They were already in development. There's not enough time to do that. Ryu, there is absolutely nothing wrong with including Ryu. And if we want to just say including one of them right now, then I'm not opposed to saying Ryu is the second third-party rep, but I definitely would not say that Jill and Snake are out.
Okay.
How do you feel about Jill and Ryu, if say that they were the two chosen, both being from the same company?
The double Capcom.
Yeah.
I can see the argument for that. The argument against that, I mean.
Right. But if we're saying we'll
it's the same reason why I didn't have. It's the same reason why I didn't have Ryu and Leon in the N64 episode. The only difference is that they're not the only third-party picks this time. There's Banjo, so it's not like 2 out of 2. It's 2 out of 3.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And Banjo is fast-tracked in like it was going to happen, so there he is. Do we want to say maybe put in a vote, and if we can get a one of them is in right now?
See if we can get a consensus, like majority.
2 out of 3, yeah.
Smash or dash rules.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think it's obvious, but I will ask first, Eric.
Is this between all three or just Ryu and Jill?
Ryu, Jill, Snake.
Okay. I'll put in Ryu.
Jonno.
Ryu, Jill, or Snake? I will put in. I'll say. I will say snake.
Okay, I don't think I hear
Predictable
consensus.
and predictable. All right, so now it's my bet. Here's what I'm gonna do. 1, for the sake of discussion. 2, for the sake of getting a move on with discussion. 3, let's be honest. This character makes sense. There are arguments. We all have arguments for these characters, but there was no argument against Ryu.
Mm-hmm.
Ryu was third party number 2.
There you
Nice.
go.
That said, again, Jill, Snake, Pac-Man, all 3 of them are still on the table. Will we include a third party? Maybe not. We'll get there. But none of them have been removed as of yet.
Okay. I'm okay with that.
All right. So right now we have Ridley, Ryu, Banjo-Kazooie, King Dedede, King K. Rool, Zelda, Wolf, and Mr. Game & Watch. We have 8 characters chosen. We have 5 slots left.
And this is gonna be a death match to like these last 5. Like, oh boy.
It's time. We have to do it. We need to talk about Pokemon.
Oh.
All right.
Do we think that we will still keep the same pattern that we've all actually done independently of each other of a Gen 1 and a Gen 2?
I think theoretically you could do just Gen 2, but I don't think we can do just Gen 1.
I agree with that.
Me too.
And looking at these, in my personal opinion, I think each of us have one Pokemon that just like comparing my 2, comparing John 2's, comparing Flamezone's 2. I think each of us have one choice that I think is a strong choice, and one choice that is a less strong choice.
Yeah, Meowth is kind of shitty. Yeah, so the baby.
I can hang up on you.
I'm just kidding.
You coming to my house? All
That's
right.
fair. I agree with you though. Like,
So
I
think keeping that in mind, I think we should start looking at the Gen 2 Pokemon.
Okay.
Which even then I say that and I immediately don't want to start with the Gen 2 Pokemon. But let's start with the Gen 2 Pokemon. Sudowoodo, Feraligatr, Bayleaf.
Yeah.
We have 2 starters. God, I'm trying to think here.
I don't know, because like I know like with, I guess Xantok's put in a weird position because he has to argue hard for Sudowoodo if to avoid his starter consideration with like not tapping into that yet.
I mean, I will say Feraligatr was up for consideration for me. At one point, they were on my list, but then I removed them for Sudowoodo because I wasn't sure if I wanted to pull the starter trigger yet.
Mm-hmm. I think if we're looking at this in the scopes of like, because Pokemon and Fire Emblem, those two always kind of consider, this character, there's probably going to be a new character in Smash.
Mm-hmm.
These are the 2 series that Nintendo wants to really push hard. The Pokemon Company and Intelligent Systems want to push hard. So a Gen 2 Pokemon here absolutely makes sense. I think we're fast tracking one of these 3.
Yes.
And your starter and evolution, that argument holds water. Though at the same time, in the scope of what I think Nintendo would do, they're like, oh, here's these 3 starter evolutions. These are the characters that are going to be introduced to players first. We're going to be pushing promo hard on them. That's where I think Feraligatr stands on top for in that regard, as well as just I feel like it's the most easily realizable from a fighting standpoint. The way that it's built, the moves available to it, it feels the most right to me in those senses.
I think that I actually largely agree with you, Gen 2 picks. I think between me and Zantok, it's like, and I think it's also fair to say that me and Zantok I consider for Alligator too, for sure. Like he's a cool Gen 2 starter, and I think that there's also like synergy to be had with Feraligatr and Charizard. I know they're both kind of like
Sure.
Timmy exciting starters that like look cool, but I think that would still go over well. And if we're breaking, if we're breaking, if we're breaking the starter, like Bandit, pulling that off, I think that's on the table. So I think I would pitch Feraligatr as my preferred Gen 2 of these options.
Sudowoodo actually is one of my favorite Pokemon, so I can't, beat up on it that much. And Bayleaf is actually kind of a cool outside option. I can't shit on these options. I think I would go for Alligator as well.
It took until Generation 7 for there to be another rock-type Pokemon that I liked more than Sudowoodo. Largely, and admittedly, a larger part of that is because I just don't like most rock types. It's like, you're a rock.
Actually, I liked Roggenrola to be honest. Like his line, I thought he was cool. From Gen 5, do you guys even know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I know. I'm just debating how to respond. Because
Okay.
I feel like, obviously, allowed to like what you're like. I don't like the Roggenrola line. They're just too. It's just like it's like obviously we all know
cute.
Gen 5 is like, okay, so we're not going to include any previous Pokemon into post game. Roggenrola is clearly just like, okay, so we have to get a replacement for Geodude for all these caves. Here's new Geodude. So the reason that I don't like a lot of Gen 5 Pokemon, I like a lot of Gen 5 Pokemon. There's a lot that I don't like when they're just like, hey, we needed a new Geodude, we needed a new Zubat. Here's Roggenrola and
Woobat or whatever.
It's like, come on. You can replace them in a more creative way, but again, we all like what we like. And I'm not
Who was your Gen 7 favorite? Was it Nielago?
Lycanroc.
Yeah, Lycanroc's great.
Midnight.
There's a lot of. I think there's a lot of really decent rock types in Gen 7.
And some cool type combos too, like Poison Fire with Salazzle is pretty sweet too at that time.
I like the type combo. I just wish it was something other than Salazzle.
But Zantok, what's your? Oh, go ahead. Oh, I was just gonna ask you what your thoughts are with the Pokemon debate that we got going here.
Oh, Gen 1ers are crazy. Oh, you mean this? You mean this?
Or so.
Listen, you're allowed to like the original 151, but Red and Blue were buggy as fuck. To say that it's the best and only good Pokemon game, you are fucked up.
I didn't say it was
missing no.
Oh no, I'm not saying you are. I'm saying Gen 1ers are crazy.
Oh yeah. Like that's just nostalgia, like blindness, basically.
Major blindness. Those games are messes chromatically.
Yeah, and like very broken with a lot of the implementation.
Yeah. As far as the debate here, I'll start off by saying I don't think Sudowoodo is the weakest of these three. I think that's Bayleaf, personally.
That's me.
Yes. Between the three of them, I have a harder time picturing Bayleaf as a Smash fighter than the other two. So it's just like imagining in my head, seeing the move, run about and just look whatnot. Like, yes, Ivysaur exists, but Ivysaur I also see working a lot easier than Bayleaf. Bayleaf is more, what's the word I'm looking for? Solid. It's like its body type, I don't. I'm not using the word that makes the most sense, but I can't think of what makes more sense. But I see, as far as like movement and jumping and running around and making attacks are concerned, Sudowoodo and Feraligatr, both of them work a lot better for me.
I guess like I was just a quick side note, I was just envisioning it like Ivysaur, because I'm pretty sure it uses like vine whips and stuff too. I was basically envisioning like Ivysaur 2.0, basically.
Right. I mean, my difference is that Ivysaur is a frog. Ivysaur's a plant frog. So, you know, they got that legs for jumping and running around and shit. Bayleaf is a dinosaur. It's harder to picture Bayleaf with its more stocky build. You know.
This is kind of a hill that Zantok often dies on with.
It's true.
Just like bipedal Pokemon, like bipedal options in general.
It's true.
We run into the same thing quite often. I'm like, hey, we should have Sigurd fight on a horse.
Or when you used to argue for Epona to be a playable character, I'm just like, how does that work? How does that work?
Yeah.
Like, so something with me is I always try to figure out like I try to picture them being animated and how they'll move about. And for some characters that's harder to see than others. As far as Sudowoodo and Feraligatr are concerned, I think both of them could easily work in a Smash-based game. The argument of the Pokemon Company making a push and promotion for one over the other holds a lot of water. Pun not intended. But it does. It does hold a lot of water. And if you're looking at Gold and Silver, if you're looking at the Pokemon anime, Sudowoodo, Brock caught a Sudowoodo, I think. Pretty sure. Either that or he had a Bonsai and then a evolved Sudowoodo. I don't remember for sure.
I think it's Gen 4 that happened. Though that's like way later, yeah. Yeah,
I think that might be the case. And if that's the case, then Sudowoodo, I don't remember its presence in the anime, but if it had a presence in the anime, it was probably one of the one-off episodes. Probably what it was. Feraligatr, meanwhile, while Feraligatr also didn't have a big presence in the anime, Totodile did. Totodile did. Honestly, if we were debating Totodile versus Feraligatr, I would say Totodile immediately. Right the fuck now. Give me fucking Totodile. I would honestly prefer to have Totodile in over Sudowoodo and Feraligatr. I'll say it. I'd love.
I think
Totodile.
I actually would make. I did consider Totodile too, actually. Just kind of like that was more because I was trying to tie it into the anime too, because like that's like how all the choices were up to this point too, like anime influence. So I was trying to still follow that, I guess.
Right.
I guess I chose Feraligatr over Totodile just because like the body type and the way it moves is a little different than the rest. You know, Totodile's kind of the same height stat, sure, as Pikachu or whatever. That was my loose argument for in my head.
Right. And I also think that in terms of a game like this, it makes more sense, generally speaking, to go with a fully evolved Pokemon. Yeah. Not every case is that going to happen. Like, you know, again, we got Pikachu. And then we have Meowth being nominated.
Jigglypuff canon.
Jigglypuff. Wigglypuff would have been really weird. Oh, boy. But yeah, I see why doing Feraligatr over Totodile. I just personally, even as like a Pokemon fan, I like Totodile more than I like Feraligatr. And I like Feraligatr. Sure. Feraligatr is my favorite water type starter. It is. Trying to think of the more modern games. Is that still true? Oh yeah, no, that's still true. That's definitely still true. What is even number? The competition is Blastoise.
Yeah.
Sorry, water starters. I don't like you as much. Oh wait, I like Samurott. Samurrott's number 3. Samurrott's number 3. It's after that where it starts to fall.
Seal one.
Fuck off. The middle stage Brion is one of the ugliest Pokemon I have ever seen. I apologize to Brion. Oh, Conkeldurr is also on the ugly list. Just gonna clarify, Conkeldurr is also ugly as fuck. Girder is worse than Conkeldurr, but they're both ugly. And you know, I know there are Brion and Primarina fans out there. I don't like it.
I was an Oshawott hater when I was younger too. I thought he was
Honestly,
ugly.
I was too. I didn't like Oshawott at first. I thought he was over-designed, and then I watched the anime and I saw him take the shell off his chest and use it as a weapon. I was like, "Oh, it's a weapon!" And then I realized Dewott and similar design. It's like, "Oh shit, the shell has a purpose in the design." I don't hate this anymore. And then I became a Samurott fan. It
Yeah,
was
he
literally seeing
grew on me.
Oshawott
Yeah.
in the anime. But as for the debate here, Sudowoodo for Alligator, obviously Sudowoodo is on my list, but I see the arguments, I understand the positions. I am willing to go with Feraligatr as our first Pokemon choice.
I concur. I think we can lock it in, I think.
All right. That said, again, we're not necessarily killing off the other ones, but Feraligatr is the first.
Mm-hmm.
It would make an argument now, though. But go ahead.
Oh, I mean, I was going to say, I do think we should stay in the realm of Pokemon and pick a second Pokemon right now. And it sounded like you had a thought to bring up.
Yeah, so I think that with Feraligatr locked in, I think Charizard is the most obvious synergistic choice because we've broken the starter seal. He's extremely popular. He's a fire type starter, which is also the most popular starter type, and it also enables a perfect layup for a Sceptile Gen 3.
Well, here's a couple things I'll say. One, we don't know Gen 3, so we can't really
that's fair.
plan for that. Two, I will say, I don't like Sceptile's the grass type starter for Smash. I honestly don't. His tail is a problem for me. His tail is a problem for me.
You can't ignore the grass anymore. You guys gotta fix this in this universe, right? Like the grass stars got so shafted in the universe.
Oh, I mean, there are good grass type starters that can be added to Smash, but I don't think they exist until Gen 6 as the
5
one we
superior,
have the first.
baby.
Superior is not the superior choice. There is no superiority. Unfortunately, because I do like Superior, but not for this. Then as far as starters and synergy is concerned, I see that argument with Charizard. I feel like though, if we were going to have 2 starter Pokemon being introduced here, I would want to have a third that's not a starter, because only adding in starters feels bad to me personally.
Mm-hmm.
I don't share that feeling, but what do you think, John?
Who am I? Say. So our Pokemon thus far are Pikachu
and Mewtwo.
So those are a couple that aren't starters.
Well, yes. But I'm saying if we only added in starters to this one, it would feel weird to me, especially with them both being heavyweights.
Gotcha. I can see the argument. Okay, so I see both arguments. Number one being Charizard is the most popular Pokemon. Like, it's just there. It feels right from that angle. But I also see your argument. I think that for Alligator and Charizard both fit a heavy build, and within the same series, with still a limited scope of characters, I can agree that, from that dev standpoint, it's a little awkward. It's not necessarily a deal breaker to me, but I see the point. I feel like at this point, the choices here are within the realm of Gen 1. I don't really think we're going for Bailey for Sudowoodo, ultimately.
Yeah, I think so.
Gengar, we kind of slept on in the discussion, and I think it's a good choice, but it's hard to argue over Meowth or Charizard. Again, it's one of the most popular Pokemon, period, as we know empirically through the many years that we've lived past Melee, and also during Gen 1 and stuff. So it's up there for a reason. It's a popular Pokemon, but I think Charizard and Meowth probably trump it at this point, especially because Gengar's signature move is still Shadow Ball, and Mewtwo already has that unlock.
I was going to say that, yeah.
But there are ways to make it different, and we did. It's one of my favorite episodes of Smash Show we did, making Gengar, and finding the differences. And how to operate Shadow Ball and the other moves. With that, and I would love Gengar and Smash, period. Oh my gosh. With that being
That'd be
said,
awesome.
yeah. I think it's between Mouth and Charizard, and I feel like I'm gonna end up being the tiebreaker. That's kind of my feeling right now.
I definitely agree that it's between Meowth and Charizard. I said Marth for some
Marth,
reason.
yes.
Yeah, it's Marth
Roy,
or
where are you,
Charizard. Marth riding Charizard. Let's go.
Oh hell yeah, yes,
But yeah, I
yes.
agree. I think Sudowoodo, Gengar, and Bayleaf, they do not stack up here between the cat and the not a dragon.
I think I can
Yeah,
agree with this
Big
too.
Lizard.
Yeah.
Big Lizard.
And
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's not bad. I think Meowth is like a way better rep than Jigglypuff would have ever been for sure in like that vein.
Oh,
And I can
yeah.
definitely appreciate him that way. I am fearful about like his moveset potential a little bit. I mean, I'm sure you could make it work, but I think it could potentially be a little bland. But I also think he kind of shares. Like, I think the antagonistic Pokemon role is also kind of filled by Mewtwo a little bit. And I'm not sure if Meowth's inclusion is necessary.
I think both of these characters follow the same general guideline proper does with Pokemon. Where ultimately you're pulling from the anime. So from that perspective, if Jigglypuff, who at the time of 64's release hadn't even appeared in an episode of the anime, but I mean was ultimately an important side character for a time and a brief period of time in anime to justify its existence in the end. I think Meowth does have the warrant to be in Smash. It's a character I would personally still like to see in Smash. 100% for the anime connection, because it's a character
for how
that was
long
very...
he's been recurring.
Yeah.
Even up through Kanto and Johto too. Yeah.
And Charizard, again, very, very powerful story arc in the anime. So yeah, they both have their place in those regards, I feel. I do have a lean in mind. I think I'm comfortable making it my vote. If assuming that Zantok is going for Meowth and Flamezone, an assumption I can make.
Well, I mean, likely. That said, I would like to speak more on Meowth's behalf. I haven't had much of a chance to do so as of yet.
Yeah, that's fair. We should give Zantok the floor.
All right, so part of my pitch with Meowth, as I had previously mentioned, the huge anime presence, which Charizard also has, and his more antagonistic behavior being associated with Team Rocket and all those appearances. Some of the other aspects I think that you can have with Meowth, we have another character that would be more small in stature, differentiating some heights, weights, body types, and smashes and all that. And then as far as potential moves, I actually pulled up what Meowth even has available to him in Gen 2. And yeah, it's a lot of normal type stuff. It's a normal type Pokemon. That's not a big surprise. But from my looking at this, I don't think it's bad. You got Fury Swipes, you got Swipe, Payday, Bite. You've got Return. It's kind of hard to imagine. Swift is one that they could make use out of. That could be an interesting choice. They have some other moves that they can learn through TM that might not be immediately obvious or maybe chosen, but there are still some options. Zap Cannon, Icy Wind, Protect, Iron Tail, Mud Slap. Mud Slap actually I could see working out fairly well. Thief.
Or Iron Tail too.
Be able to steal items out of a character's hands or something.
That would be very...
Oh, that'd be perfect. Yeah, like Payday, Thief for sure. Payday would definitely be on his kit, I think.
Definitely.
Easily. I had made a moveset for Meowth years ago for Smash W Wiki. I didn't bring it up because I wanted to look just at what Gen 2 moves were available, and I'm pretty sure I had more than Gen 2 moves on that moveset. But I think I did give Meowth... actually, I guess might as well bring it up since I do have the list of the Gen 2 moves. Like the Meowth I had made, it has Payday, it has Fury Swipes, it has Thief, Frustration was its Final Smash. Not that we have Final Smashes here. And then it has Faint, which it also has in Gen 2. Actually, no, Faint does not have Faint. That's Faint Attack, slightly differently. Um, but yeah, so I do think there is enough moves, yes, for Meowth that they wouldn't necessarily be a boring, oh, it's just normal types. Blah.
Yeah, there's stuff to work there. Payday, Thief, Iron Tail. I think Dig maybe. There's strong choices there. Moveset potential. Fair enough. Any final vote?
Sorry, you just cut out for 1 second. You said any further arguments?
Yeah, any further arguments before we get to the vote?
I want something besides just starters. Is my last argument.
Yeah. And
Okay.
I would say if Meowth and Feraligatr got in and Charizard wasn't, I think there would be a vocal group of people would be like, "Where is Charizard?" But that's fair. I just want to hear what your lean is.
So okay, yeah, it does sound like again, Flamezone is to Charizard as Zantok is to Meowth, which means this is a Jonno moment of truth. I love both choices. I would feel comfortable with either of these being in Smash, and ultimately want both of them. I don't know how the game will turn out in the end, but it would be nice. Yeah, I agree with Eric that Charizard not being included now would have a very vocal fan base mentioning why is Charizard not in, but Ridley's in and Bowser's in, and they all breathe fire or some redundant crap like that. It's the Pokemon fan base. I mean, come on. But then you have, and it would be far more vocal than Meowth because Charizard most popular Pokemon of all time. At the same time, this is Meowth's moment. I think Pokemon has remained evergreen and extremely popular, but in this iteration, like, oh, it's the anime informs the games and vice versa. It's never been more prevalent than right around now. Like, this is Meowth's heyday to get in.
His payday.
His payday.
Yay!
And I think there's characters here who may not Ganondorf, Sheik, Charizard, whoever, who are hugely popular characters. We had this happen in our world with K. Rool and Ridley for years, 20 years past due, arguably. So it wouldn't be unprecedented necessarily for Charizard to not cut here, even though it would be blasphemous to a large group of people. It's an even match for a lot of reasons that we've already covered, and again, respect both choices a lot. But my vote, for reasons that have been brought up regarding just differentiation and stature and whatnot, I will say Meowth is my pick. Truly a 51-49 situation.
I can respect it though, especially with the considerations for Ridley, Bowser, and the amount of large fighters already pushed through. I think that this is reasonable.
Yeah, even within this game, Feraligatr, DDD, King K. Rool, Ridley.
And Charizard has a very high chance of coming back in later.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
Definitely.
Like,
there's some characters.
Yeah. I think there'll be a window between Gen 4 and 5, like where he might be the best choice.
Yeah, there's.
I mean, Brawl will include Brawl will introduce Gen 3 and Gen 4. Smash 4 will introduce Gen 5 and Gen 6.
Huh.
All right.
We got to the Pokemon.
Yep. And guess what? We now have 10. Wait, did I count this right? Shit. Yeah, we have 10 characters picked. There are 3 slots left.
Only one third-party slot, right?
No, we have 2 third-party slots.
No, we have Ryu and
Oh,
Banjo.
what one left? You mean? I was counting.
Yeah.
I was saying we had two chosen. To go over who is currently still up for debate, there is Dr. Mario, Gino, Sheik, Ganondorf, Balloon Fighter, Danbei and Hikari, I mean, Pac-Man, Solid Snake, and Jill Valentine.
Mm-hmm.
I think what I would say at the front is that I do not currently think there is room for both Sheik and
And Ganondorf.
Ganondorf. I don't think we have that room. So at this point, it's picking who we would rather have. And I think we are probably all of the same mind.
Yeah.
Potentially not with this one, but I will continue.
I was thinking between them, if considering we would only be having one of them for sure, I think Ganondorf.
Okay, then we are the same mind.
Well, who knows? We may not be, Jonno.
Surprisingly, we are of the same mind. I actually thought you, Zantok, would go Sheik.
If we had the room, I might argue for Sheik and then potentially having Ganon on top of that. But if we're only going to have one, I'm going to go with Ganondorf in this instance.
Mm-hmm.
And then he will
it...
have the transformation mechanic with Ganon.
Isn't that actually interesting that we all put Sheik on and she didn't make it through?
Hey, it's like it's
Yeah.
finally true. I've been saying it at the start of every episode. Just because a character is on all three of our lists, that doesn't mean they are a guarantee. And it's finally true. It finally happened.
Wow.
Yeah. It did, and it'll be interesting to see if Sheik makes it further on, since we do know Ocarina of Time is her only appearance.
Yeah, and it's kind of like it was like I kind of feel like this was her time. Like this is like her strongest argument, and now it's going to be harder now from now on. I think.
I mean,
for sure.
Hyrule Warriors.
Hyrule Warriors, sure. But
Or Impa
Yeah.
maybe though at that point.
Yeah.
mm-hmm. Impa's so cool in Hyrule Warriors.
But now
A lot of characters.
Yeah.
Are awesome in Hyrule
Honestly,
Warriors.
Link's design in Hyrule Warriors is still my favorite Link design.
He's neat. Yeah. But yeah, it's going to be quite a crapshoot when we get into Brawl now. Skull Kid, Tetra, and some others.
Yeah. But before we can get there, we got to finish things up here. We have 2 slots left. Everything at this point is either a retro pick or a Mario pick. Or a third party pick. Or a third party pick. I feel like we pick a non-third party first, and then we decide if we want to have second non-third party or a third party.
Are we calling Gino third party for clarification?
I think we have to, right?
Yeah, it's much like Banjo. It's kind of a complicated situation. He's kind of a 2.5, whatever you want to call it. But for the sake of discussion, third party, but also a Mario character, which just makes it hard.
Yeah,
even at
he
this
also
point
kind of
now,
he hogs so much space with like the other third parties and also like adjacent to Dr. Mario too.
Yeah.
Even with Super Mario RPG being re-released as a remake on the Switch, we're still not entirely sure where those rights lie. It's an interesting.
I mean, he's a co-jointly owned character. We know that because Square is trademarked for Superstar Saga.
Oh yeah, sure. I forgot he was in that game.
Yeah. Cameo on the fucking pinball machine, which got removed in the remake. Fuck you.
Well, shit.
But let's look at this. As far as 9 third parties are concerned, we have Dr. Mario, we have Balloon Fighter, we have Danbei and Hikari. We have to pick at least one of them by the rules.
So who is that between?
Dr. Mario, Balloon Fighter, and Danbei and Hikari. Unless we want to peel back an X from a previously dropped character, which is an option.
Maybe Sheik?
Like, through it all, and let's put in Bayleaf.
I mean, we could theoretically bring Sheik back to the table. That is possible.
I know all of these three characters heavily. These three characters are not heavily involved in your mind, Flamezone, but I do think that merit to the discussion of all three. I would say at this point that Balloon Fighter is probably the most obvious choice of the three. I'll just toss there.
He's not my favorite. I think Dr. Mario is my favorite of the three.
That actually
He is a
stuns me.
doctor.
I thought he would be at the bottom of the list.
Donbei and Hikari are just an unknown quantity, I feel like, and that's where it's like, screw him.
It makes it really hard to discuss them when there's just a lack of familiarity.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's where we'll get into it a little bit, because I read up on the game and watched a little bit of the gameplay. So it's a how do we say it's actually it's like an RPG style. How do you like Tomato Adventure and other games at the time, and it's a text-based adventure game, visual novel RPG. And Donbei and Hikari are loosely based off of Japanese myth, off of fairy tales like Momotaro and Princess Kaguya, or again, they're born out of a rice bowl and a bamboo tree. But they have a number of different weapons they can use. Donbei is essentially a caveman who's a brute-ish, strength-based character who beats around opponents with a stick. Hikari is a lot more resourceful than Donbei, a lot more elegant, and attacks with a fan. And within the scope of Smash, you could probably swap back and forth between the characters as leads, and then have the other act tertiary, like Popo and Nana do, where the secondary is still attacking and moving around on a computer basis. They have a number of different magical abilities and weapons, including a magic mallet that turns one smaller than the other and lets them spring back up, which we would later see essentially with some of the partner abilities in Superstar Saga. Creating gusts of wind with Hikari's fan. They have a number of allies that come on their adventure, including Ringo the dog, a monkey that leaps around off of vines, a pheasant that carries them over water, a a Tengu who is able to fly them around. So again, kind of like RPG stanchions that were later used in Paper Mario and Mario and Luigi. They have available to them now. So there is the moveset potential there, and I think it's a arguably more interesting take on the duo dynamic than the Ice Climbers were, even though I really like them. So that's the pitch for them. Bada bing, bada boom.
You know what? Like, were you saying something, Zantok?
No, go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say, in towards in positive towards John's statement there, I think that they are overall more interesting as you described than what Ice Climbers are capable of. And I think that even in universe of your guys' Smash, there is precedent to include like a Japanese only wild card with Takamaru. So I think that there is surprising validity with John's decision or John's pitch with these two. But another concern I have, another concern I have though is, so what did you say?
Nothing. Go on.
Oh, okay. So another like concern I have is something Zantok said earlier is like it almost feels like a requirement to me to have like a Mario rep of some kind, and it's tricky with Gino and Dr. Mario. It's just kind of like I want one of them for sure personally, and it just like makes the dynamic weird now.
So because they're lesser characters than who we've already pushed in. Gino, not necessarily, but the rights issue makes it weird. Dr. Mario is still Mario in a doctor suit.
Something I will say in regards to multiples of these characters. Uh, well, I said it feels weird to not at least consider a Mario character. I there is that we could theoretically go without actually including one. If Peach wasn't in, I will be stabbing people to include Peach at this point. And Peach was Peach was a holdout for me in the last one. I wasn't sure about adding Peach in the N64 one, but if she hadn't been, I would. She probably
Yeah.
would have been on all of our lists here, and then we would.
Yeah, she would have been.
Dr. Mario wouldn't even be on my list. Uh, but Brawl, granted, this is pulling back to the real world version of Smash and knowledge and discussion here. Brawl did not add a Mario character. Brawl is the only Smash Bros. Game to not add a Mario character. Not only that, but to take away a Mario character.
Yeah.
Now,
Oh,
granted, WarioWare, when you get into the Mario sub-series, it gets a little funky. Not Kong, but funky. So I just wanted to kind of clarify a stance there. That while I wanted to include them for debate, I'm not necessarily saying one has to be added, especially because at this point, the important crew is all here. They're here at this point. We have Mario, Luigi, Bowser Peach. They're all in Smash. We've already said that. If one of them was missing, the fuck, they'd be instantly in. As far as Balloon Fighter, I think the hardest problem with Balloon Fighter is you got to get inventive with Balloon Fighter's moveset, but they had to get inventive with the Ice Climbers and many other characters, and I think it can definitely be done with Balloon Fighter. The problem with Don
I will say you have.
Yes, I
you
have.
have gotten inventive with Balloon
I
Fighter.
made a wonderful moveset for them. And then with Don and Hikari, a lot of what Jonno said with them has merit. I think they could be a very interesting fighter, a more interesting take on the Ice Climbers for sure, where it's not just, oh, here's Popo leading, and then here's Nana either doing the same move or backing up in some way. My question with Danbei and Hikari is that it kind of sounded like from what you were saying that they can swap positions, they swap who's in control. We already does that not in essence make them a transforming character like Zelda Sheik or like Ganondorf?
I think it's different in Brawl again that we have that would necessarily be available at this point. There's been heavy rumors that Diddy and Dixie were considered tag team similar to Pope and I, but also with that element where, as in Donkey Kong Country, give each other a 5 and swap position, who's in front and different moves. That was kind of my pitch with them. So I view it as tag team versus transformation. There's elements that are the same as Zelda Sheik, but I think different enough.
Okay.
Like maybe are you saying they all have the same kind of maybe basic moves, or say maybe what were their names again? Sorry, Hikaru and
Danbei and Hikari.
Danbei. So maybe if their forward aerial is just Danbei and then back aerial is Hikari or something like that. You mean they're interchange and stuff?
Yeah, I mean generally, if you wanted there to be a homogeneity, that would be a huge issue. They're within enough of the same stature to where, regardless of who's the lead, you can save on development time for the character by using some of the same bones and having a side aerial, for instance, where Danbei would be stick, Hikari may be using your fan, but it's the move essentially.
I mean, probably what I would do is I would have them if I'm making them into a character, they don't swap, but different moves. But each of them has different moves that they do. Like Danbei can have a club smash and maybe a side special as Sakari doing a wavy fan attack thing. I don't know.
That's how I envision too.
The attack instead of them being like a swapping forward or something, makes them more of a team than a half Ice Climbers, half Zelda Sheik.
Yeah, that's very fair in that it puts them in their own box, and it's actually easier to.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Taking that into consideration,
God, this is a tough one, man. I'm just trying to think.
yeah,
Like,
I mean, they are both valid options for retro picks. Honestly, with only 2 characters left, I would rather have one of them over Dr. Mario because I think they're more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Mario, well, yes, Dr. Mario would represent another Mario character and a puzzle game, which would be new at this point. Uh, do you guys think Pac-Man is a puzzle game? Just sidebar. Is Pac-Man a puzzle game?
It
wasn't ready for
in
these
a
life-altering questions.
in a way, but it stresses me out a whole lot more than
That's
really
fair.
do.
That's fair. Holy balls. Oh
Uh-huh.
god. Yeah. Okay, so back to the real discussion. That thought crossed my mind and then the words needed to escape my mouth. Hey, it's better than the dumb fucking question people like that. So like, is a hot dog a sandwich or
I
whatever the
was
fuck else
thinking
it
of
is?
that
Like
when you said
that
that.
shit is dumb. That shit's dumb. A hot dog's a hot dog. Fuck off. It's not a taco either. A taco's a taco.
Oh
Jesus
no.
Christ.
Oh no. A
Ugh.
hot dog is a taco. God.
Let me tell you what will
Now
never
I'm-
be an on-topic episode. Questions like that.
Okay. That's fair to me. I don't want to do that either.
Good. Balloon Fighter, Zombie Hikari. We're only gonna have one of them, I would assume. I mean,
Mhm.
that's Flamezone did put down that rule. Balloon Fighter, Zombie Hikari.
The thing is, I'm still.
I'm
Okay, go
thinking.
ahead.
I'm thinking Legacy. Balloon Fighter has that much larger legacy and third party, and it's just I associate him more existing as a thing.
A part of me really wants to bring back Sheik. Like, it's bad. It's like I don't know.
My counter, not even necessarily a counter because it's not like points are invalid. It's less of a legacy at this since there's a recency to it. I feel like Balloon was always there. It was a good NES game that got some traction, but it really took off the ground when Iwata passed away and people were really started to attach. Like, Balloon Fighter should be in Smash as an ode to Iwata since it was
Man, I was Team Balloon Fighter before Iwata died.
hipster. But yeah, I like Balloon Fight. There's nothing wrong with the character. Between them and Dr. Mario and even whoever else is on the board, I've kind of talked myself into Dumb being an actually super valid option. And I didn't know that I would, because at first it was a pitch like, oh, it's an alternative. True enough, but there's more there, as we discussed. So I think purely from a moveset standpoint and just like can we make this happen technically on the GameCube? Yes, we can. We have that power now. I think they're a cool pick. So I think that's where my lean lies at this point.
I mean, I could serve as a tiebreaker between Balloon Fighter and Hikaru for pushing one through for sake of time, and I think I'm okay with either one. How do you feel about this?
Does that mean that Dr. Mario's off the table then?
I think I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Especially because
I think
that's the point about Brawl was strong about they didn't include a Mario character, so there isn't even a precedent to have to do it. So okay.
Yeah,
That and we included 2, maybe 3 if you count Wario.
And on top of that, if we're going to include another Nintendo character for like the final slot instead of a third party, I would bring back somebody else before I would say that's Dr. Mario.
Yeah. I liked the Dr. Mario being playable in Smash as a me, but I don't feel it's something we have to do in this.
Agreed.
It's just like it happened. It happened out of circumstance, and it doesn't need.
It
That's fair,
happened because
too.
it was convenient.
Mm-hmm.
There's an
Doc-
argument to declone him for sure, like Lister was saying, but I also like the idea that we were like I liked how we're all in agreement about skipping the non-desirables of melee, like the clones.
I
Yeah,
mean, hey,
from the
I'll
very
say it
start.
again.
Yeah.
Roy was initially in that slot, but I dropped him because
Mm-hmm.
like I need to have a Mario thing in consideration.
That's fair. That's fair. I think Roy might have been in contention at this point too. He would have been an interesting discussion to have, but I don't think just past thought, I guess. Anywho,
All right. Well, but my pitch with Balloon Fighter is, uh, granted, a large part of it is I like Balloon Fighter. I do.
mm-hmm.
I feel very strongly about that. I think he would be unique enough to have. They both would be. Balloon Fighter is going to be more of a very air controlling character. Danbei and Hikari, they had the two of them working together. Uh, Danbei Hikari is going to be a lot more obscure. Balloon Fighter,
Mm-hmm.
not exactly a household name, but more well known. Not that that's
Mm-hmm.
necessarily a point for or against it. It is just a fact. Uh, the only other thing I could possibly mention is that the only other character that could fight like Balloon Fighter is Alice, and there are theoretically other options that could fight like Danbei and Hikari. Beyond that, I don't have really anything else to say.
And can you potentially pull up the roster so far so I can see
Oh yeah,
who is in from the NES era?
yeah. It's just gonna give me a moment to rearrange because otherwise it's gonna look weird. All the X's and shit will be on top of it.
Sorry.
Bam.
Okay. Well, so there really isn't much. Oh, like there's like the pit row kind of.
Yeah.
Oh,
I when considering it, how the two characters would play, they would both bring something unique to the table at this point. So it's if you're not attached to either character, it's just like who would you rather play as? Who would be more fun or interesting to play as for
Mhm.
you at this point?
is there any merit in saying that Balloon Fighter is more relevant from a Western perspective, and then the duo Danbei Hikaru or Hikari are more relevant from the Eastern perspective?
I
Is that
Not to my knowledge. I mean, obviously, Dominic Kari would be not relevant to the Western perspective in the slightest. But Balloon Fight was released internationally. Not every version of it was. Some versions were released only in Japan. Some were released like the Game and Watch version of Balloon Fight was the States and
Mhm.
Europe, not Japan. Balloon Fight Versus was Japan and the U.S. Balloon Fight NES was all three. So I would say it's valid internationally.
okay?
I
Balloon
would
Kid was
also
not Japan, but which was the one that had Alice.
interesting.
But
Interesting. I didn't know that.
That's
And
good,
I would
Lister.
also measure like from that obscurity ratio you're talking about. Ice Climber is kind of firmly
oh yes,
between
it
these
was.
two.
It just has a
Like,
different name for some
yeah,
reason. It was on Game Boy
got it.
Color, not Classic Game Boy. That's weird.
Right, right. Yeah, Ice Climber didn't necessarily have a tremendous legacy either. It was a game that came out and people played it and panned it because it kind of sucked.
It's a bad game, and I hated playing it. I love the characters in Smash, but I hate their game.
Yeah, so I still wouldn't be against a 3D platformer with them starring in it. I think that would be cool. But that's a total sidebar. It's yeah, it's whatever you feel is right in your heart. I think we made our cases clear enough.
Yeah. Yeah, you can obscure that now, Zantok. That's fine. I also really looking at that again. It's also like there wasn't room for Duck Hunt, hey, and like he's gonna come back as like maybe a retro down the line, but
Oh, you bet
Probably
your
so.
ass I'm dominating Duck Hunt eventually. Oh, you bet your ass he's coming
yeah.
in. I don't know when.
Oh God.
There are others that I think come in before him. Like again, Mr. Game and Watch. And beyond that, I'll wait for those further episodes to discuss. But I fucking love the Duck Hunt Dog.
Yeah.
But not yet. Not yet.
And oh man, I guess I have both good arguments, and this is a tough one because it's actually really close. But to me, I guess I would. Yeah, I don't know. That's tough. I think for all the arguments Jonno made about how their gameplay is unique, I also like how Takamaru is already established in universe in your guys' roster, so kind of it's not that crazy to bring in a Japanese only IP and kind of say, oh, what's that? Kind of like just like a cool novelty thing, like kind of like what Fire Emblem was before it was in the West. I think that's pretty interesting. And also, I know Lister likes Balloon Fighter, but I think that there'd be other NES ones before him that I would pitch. Like even Duck Hunt Dog. If Duck Hunt Dog was in his spot, I think it would be stronger. So I think I'm gonna go with Donbei and Hikari.
On multiple levels, I am screaming fuck right now.
Oh my gosh. It finally happened. Thank you.
God.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh my gosh.
For the record, if Takamaru wasn't in, I would not make that decision.
Whatever your reason is. Whatever your reason is, I'm fine.
On multiple levels, I am screaming right now.
Oh no.
I think Balloon Fighter will get his chance another day.
I don't know if he will.
We'll see. We will see.
I think last time could have been his chance. I think this should have been his chance.
That's.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it happened.
I had to go with my heart here, though.
It happened to me multiple times. So I mean, I'm gonna celebrate a win.
Fuck.
Because Jonno had strong arguments, so like especially before I walked into this thinking it was a write-off too, like what the heck is that, right? But what Jonno said about like being the Ice Climbers replacement, what they're capable of, like how much more interesting they are, they offer a new gameplay experience with the tag team mechanic and stuff, and kind of like I think if Meowth got in over Charizard for stature and kind of like uniqueness, I think Donbei Hikaru deserve their spot. Although Balloon Fighter also offers unique aerial mechanics as well, but that's a tough call though. He could make it in technically over a third party.
So this says the person that said no more than 2 retros.
Well, I also consider. I was thinking that would make Pac-Man excluded, so like it kind of satisfies it for me, I guess, because I do consider Pac-Man like a retro in my perspective. So it's looking like it's going to be 3 potentially if Pac-Man goes through, but
potentially, but we will get there. Inside of you, Flamezone, there are 2 wolves. One of them is grinning while chewing on their tongue in delight and grimacing and growling in the darkness.
We are those 2 wolves.
Indeed we are. Now give us a pat on the head. Thank you.
Okay.
So where do we go from here?
There's one fucking slot left.
Balloon Fighter is still on the table. So we will see where this goes. Him, Pac-Man, Jill, and Snake.
And Gino.
I keep forgetting he's there. And Gino.
I wouldn't write him off. I don't think it's a write-off. I think he's also a good. I think he's my preferred Mario adjacent for sure.
I mean, honestly, to me, Gino isn't it. Like, I love Gino. We all know that. But I don't think it's time. I don't think it's time.
Mm-hmm. Who do you think it's time for out of these characters?
Are you asking Zantok or me? I don't know who you're asking.
He's asking me.
Oh, yep, I am.
There are two that I'm looking at.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at Pac-Man. And I'm looking at Snake.
Interesting.
Okay.
Pac-Man is...
So if you're not looking at Jill, is that just like right off then?
I mean, not necessarily, because you guys can have arguments.
I think I'm staunchly against her still.
I mean, well, okay, why are you staunchly against Jill?
Well, Jill and Snake. Just for the reasons.
Okay, that's what I was trying to
before.
get to, because you didn't say that you're staunchly against Snake. You almost said staunchly against Jill. You also said you're staunchly against Pac-Man. So.
and also the Capcom. The
Capcom argument is the only argument that, in my opinion, is valid against Jill right now, because we do have Ryu. I still do not think the quote-unquote violence thing is an issue with these characters. I really don't. You don't want them to shoot guns. Fine, they don't shoot guns. They have knives. They have explosions. Snake can plant a bomb. Jill can push forward a zombie, just like she does in fucking Marvel's Capcom 2. I really don't think that's an issue.
That's fair.
Like, we ain't GTA. We shooting monsters and robots.
Not GTA yet.
Wait
until Trevor comes along.
We're never gonna be GTA. GTA's not happening.
Hey cousin, let's go bowling.
Oh, God.
Nico.
God. Let's go bowling with a Pac-Man. That was pretty good. Snake and Pac-Man, huh?
Yeah.
Potentially Joe.
I guess.
I see.
Pac-Man is the grandfather of gaming.
Mm-hmm.
There's the huge legacy there. Snake, personal friends with Kojima, between him and Sakurai. We already know Kojima tried to get Snake into Melee. And now that Smash has had a pre-established presence, I could see that conversation happening sooner than it did before, because we've also already had third parties be in Smash, so it's not like that's a foreign concept.
Mm-hmm.
And Metal Gear is fucking huge. It's fucking huge.
Mm-hmm.
And Metal Gear 1 and 2 is out. Is 3 out at this point? I'm not entirely sure. But also, Solid Snake isn't in 3. That's Naked Snake, Big Boss.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which Snake in Smash is more or less a composite of the two, but he's generally considered to be Solid Snake.
Yeah, I always thought that was bizarre.
Aren't MGS 2 and 3 PS2 games? They wouldn't be out yet.
MGS 2.
Metal Gear Solid 2, yeah.
Metal Gear Solid 2. Oh, Metal Gear Solid 2 released 2001. We only have up to Metal Gear Solid 1 right now. But even then, that first game was still huge.
Mm-hmm. It was huge, it's true.
It was akin to, it was like 3D actions.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy VII was much larger at the time, but it's the closest thing I could say to kind of how big of an impact it was. And
it released in September of 98, so well within our timeline.
Mm-hmm. Right. The only reason I would say Snake point is because we're already including it. And to me, it doesn't feel right to double dip in the third parties just yet.
You cut out there. I didn't hear that.
Yeah, I didn't hear.
Oh, sorry. I think it's the internet today. I don't know. Like wind and shit over here. I said the only reason I would Snake over Jill at this point is because I do feel double dipping with companies at this point.
Right.
Like two from Capcom in the same game feels a little odd. That may just be me, but that's why.
Fair.
I would agree with you on Snake. Pac-Man. Yeah, I mean, I think Pac-Man is like Ryu. He's like a Mega Man. He's like a eventually Sonic. You can't go wrong with the character. Unless you're Flamezone and say there's too many retros, and he's one of them.
I think
So,
that's still true.
yep.
I mean, if he's a retro, Ryu's a retro. Gino's a retro.
Yeah. Yeah. Kinda.
But it's interesting the dichotomy between characters. There's one that's been around forever, longer than any other character here. I would almost lean Snake just because Pac-Man being in is kind of almost stealing Game & Watch's thunder.
I was gonna say
That's a fair
something
point.
very similar to that. It's kind of like he can come
but-
back in one more iteration or something and be like a big impact too.
Come out with the same trailer. That's like, oh, Pac-Man came out a month before Mr. Game & Watch.
Yeah, you could literally redo that. Well, mostly. Because I think Sonic was also involved in that trailer. But, yes.
Yeah. Have
Gotcha,
Sonic and Pac-Man, Sonic and Pac-Man in the same one and make it happen. Yeah.
Sonic
yeah,
riding
I mean,
Pac-Man.
easily, yeah. Oh, God. So there's merit to either character, and it's they're both on the other side of the debate in terms of like timeline and the reason why they're important.
Here's my pitch. Here's my pitch. Let's shock the world with a choice that they would not have expected. Let's break the internet. I think Solid Snake would be the more surprising and internet thundering choice.
Eric, what do you think?
Well, I think that basically leans into Snake. I mean, I think I prefer it over Pac-Man too, like you were saying about the Mr. Game Watch and Pac-Man like stealing the thunder of the other. Yeah, I was gonna ramp that point, but you were like basically spoke exactly what I was thinking. I think Gino got kind of slept on here, but hopefully he'll be revisited in the future because I think he is like a great rep for just like the Square relationship, and maybe like in the next iteration or next timeline, he'll be more Square and Nintendo will go back to being on more friendlier terms, I guess. Again,
Unquestionably, Gino is the character that I want for Mario most, and it should happen, and it should have happened a long time ago. And I do believe, with the passion that Zantok has, especially, but also myself, I think Gino's in a good place in this game.
Okay.
Not to predict the future too much, but he will come back up in passion for sure.
When that is,
Cool.
who knows?
Mm-hmm.
And there's also like an argument that's like if they didn't make it this time, they can always come back next time. I think Pac-Man and Gino both fit the bill for that, and they can kind of be their own because there's a lot of like bangers on what we've pushed through so far, right?
Yeah.
And I think Snake is like the kind of like the shattering world between because like Ryu was on SNES, but then Snake is just like this like wow factor. So I think I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it too.
All right. Solid Snake is in.
Wow.
Gino is out. Balloon Fighter is out.
I still feel bad about that one. I'm sorry, Zantok.
You should. And I'll tell you why later. Jill Valentine is out. And Pac-Man is also out. We have our roster. The 13 characters we are adding to Super Smash Bros. Melee on top of everything else that is already in through previous games. We have King K. Rool, Zelda, Ganondorf, Ridley, King Dedede, Wolf, Meowth, Feraligatr, Mr. Game & Watch, Donbei and Hikari, Snake, Ryu, and Banjo and Kazooie.
Wrapped all
Beautiful.
up on Spiral Mountain.
That's all 13.
Lucky 13. Good times. Thank you, Flamezone, for your content. I can say with certainty it wouldn't have been an episode without you. And for that, we thank you. Or at least I thank you. I thank you personally.
What adjective did you use there? I couldn't tell what adjective it was.
Yeah, it was
know.
the something episode. I was like, yes, it was certainly an episode. I think he was trying to say it wouldn't have been the same episode. Yeah.
Yes.
I think, yeah, I like our roster. I mean, looking at collectively, it's definitely on the heavy side, but I mean, why not? They're all important.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun though. Thanks for having me on, and a really, really fun format. I hope it'd be kind of cool to even see it more in beyond this season. Just kind of see like what kind of remixes we can throw in there, or like the original cast is banned or something, or just like something like crazy.
Oh boy.
Crazy
Oh
thing.
god.
Oh buddy.
We have a story to tell you about that, and we'll get there.
Okay.
Jesus. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our Super Smash Bros. Melee Roster Redux episode. Next time around, it's Super Smash Bros. Brawl on the Wii. We're going, the timeline is shifting forwards. We're going to have a lot more years that are going to be available in this one. Because I believe, I'm trying to find where it is, the deadline for the next one, we're jumping 12/31/06. We're jumping forward 7 years.
Sonic's heyday year.
There's going to be a lot of new games, a lot of new characters that are going to be up for nomination, including the last remaining N64 characters that didn't exist yet. They'll be available finally. Haha!
That they will.
But not all GameCube characters will be. It's just
That
the
they
nature
will
of the
not.
beast. And we'll be adding 16 characters to that one. So, I think we're at 39 right now. We'll be at 55 when that episode ends. God damn. God damn.
Yeah.
Gonna get nuts.
Yeah, it is.
All right. With that, the episode's over. See you on the next one. Bye, everyone.
Later.
Goodbye, my friends.